Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagur here. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, can you please give me the thumbs up? Let me know that I'm audible to you so that we can start. I'm audible? Done. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Let's start. So, welcome to the extra class for Indian Economy GS Paper 3. I believe we have completed 23 sessions now, 23 classes. Last one class, because Tuesday there was some certain technical error, certain technical issue. We had to postpone the class. Today, we will be completing all the very important concepts that are left out. Not much is left out, very small part is left out. I'll finish all the remaining topics, and then if you have any kind of question regarding Indian economy, don't ask me questions about polity. Do not ask me questions about geography. I'm not the right person. So any question regarding whatever we have discussed in the last 20 plus classes, if you have a doubt, please hold on to them. I'll address it right once I finish all the topics. Okay, with that caveat, as usual, the convention, the practice that we have started is weekly current affairs I'll be giving you. Correct? I hope remember this. Weekly current affairs I'll be giving you. So for the last 5 weeks, I've given it. Today is the sixth week, or let's say the last day of the sixth week. And as promised, I'm giving you right the articles from various important areas that we have covered. We have discussed in the last let's say 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which have appeared in different newspapers. I've given the articles. Please go through all of these articles. All these are very important, right? Again, both for UPSC preliminary examination as well as mains examination. Totally, I've given you around 20 plus articles. Okay, I've given you around 20 plus articles. Read all these articles. And all of these articles are important. With that particular caveat, let me start. We started with the concept of employment chapter. Correct. We started with the idea of employment, concept of employment. Now, what did we discuss in the last class? Not last week, last class. What did we discuss? Employment basically, right, the whole population is divided into two groups. I'm saying two groups. You can divide this into three. Some of the books will divide it into four, etc. But the logic is simple here. The people who are willing to work in the age group of 15 to 59 years or 15 to 65 years are classified as labor force. And those who are not willing to work, those who are not eligible to work, etc., these are classified as non-workers. The labor force is further divided into two parts: those which are willing to work, get the work, and are paid for the work. Those who are willing to work, get the work, and those who are paid for the work, right? That is called as a employed population. This is called as employed population. And those who are willing to work do not get the work, obviously no payment. This is called as unemployed population. Unemployed population, right? So employed population, unemployed, non-workers, etc., put together will give you the whole population, the total population of a country. Then we have discussed different types of unemployments, such as a concept of frictional unemployment, where person will shift from one job to another job, but while changing from one job to another job, the person might remain unemployed for certain number of days, certain number of months, etc. That is called as frictional. What structural? Whenever a new technology is introduced, automatically certain skill sets will become useless. Skill sets become outdated, right? Not useful for the economy. That population will lose the job. That is called as structural unemployment. Third one is called as seasonal unemployment. Seasonal means whenever there's a change in season, right? Let's say Kharif season, Rabi season, etc. So whenever there's a change in the season, certain people will lose their jobs. That is called as seasonal unemployment. And the fourth one is cyclical. Whenever the health of the economy deteriorates, health of the economy takes a hit, health of the economy will become bad. In such situation, certain people will lose the job. That is called as cyclical unemployment. In addition to this, we have discussed what is natural rate of unemployment, what is open unemployment, disguised unemployment, etc., etc. So different types of unemployment. Then we discuss measurement. And before discussing measurement, I told you certain important concepts. Earlier, we published employment unemployment survey, EUS, employment unemployment survey. It was published by Labor Bureau. Unemployment and unemployment surveys were published for every 5 years, once every 5 years. But we wanted a data which is very frequent, which represents what is actually happening in the economy right now. That is a precise reason. Instead of having employment, unemployment surveys once every 5 years, now we have a periodic labor force survey which is conducted by NSO, National Statistic Organization, basically part of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So NSO basically will publish PLFS once every quarter and will also publish PLFS for full financial year. And once they collect the data, how many are employed, unemployed, etc., they will publish different indicators, different ratios. The most important ratio is unemployment rate. Unemployment ratio or unemployment rate. Then we have discussed concept of jobless growth. Jobless growth. What is this idea of a jobless growth? Whenever the GDP growth rate in an economy is very high, right, and the employment growth rate is very, very low, there is a huge discrepancy or huge diversion between both the growth rates. And because there is a huge gap in growth rates of both of them, this situation where growth rate is there, but employment generation is very, very weak, that situation is called as jobless growth situation. And in case of India, generally there is an argument that we are experiencing jobless growth phenomenon. How so? Look at employment elasticity. Employment elasticity in the last 2 decades has declined in India, which means denominator. Employment elasticity means what? Whenever there's a change in the GDP, how much is the change in employment growth rate? How many new jobs are getting created? Right? The ratio of that divided by change in the GDP, that is called as employment elasticity. In case of India, employment elasticity was around 0.4 in 1990s, has declined to 0.2 currently, which means 1990s, if I created 1% GDP growth rate, accordingly, we would increase the number of jobs by 0.4%. But for the same 1% GDP growth rate today, we are creating only new 0.2% of the jobs. So there is a declining employment elasticity. So employment elasticity has decreased. Labor laws are very stringent in India. Labor laws are very, very stringent in India. Central government is also forming labor laws. State government also has formed a lot of labor laws. As a result of this, there are more than 100 labor laws in India. More than 100 labor laws. That is very difficult for the manufacturers, etc., to follow. Apart from this, skilled labor availability is very, very poor, very low in India. Let me prove it to you. Look at this particular data. I'll come back to this. Labor issues, skilling is a problem in India, and it should not be a surprise to you. If you're reading the articles in different newspapers that I'm giving, or even Hindu that you're getting, having skilled labor is very, very difficult in India. Why? As per economic survey itself, only around 11 to 12%. Only around 11 to 12%, 2.4% plus 8.9%. It will just be around 11%. So only around 11 to 12% of the population or the working force in India is actually skilled, which means a large population which is working doesn't have access to skill sets. So population is there. You can harness this population. You can use the population to produce more demographic dividend. But what is happening? A lot of population which we want to harness doesn't have access to skill sets, doesn't have any skill sets. Or if there are skill sets, these are not useful today. Because please understand, there will be two terms here. One, the population doesn't have any skill sets. Is it okay? One, population doesn't have, the working population doesn't have any skill set. That anyways is a problem. Second one, there's a term called as skill gap. Remember this also. There's a term called as skill gap. Now, what is a skill gap? Skill gap simply means the skill sets which are demanded and which are available in the market are different. I'll give you an example. Have patience. The skill sets which are required for the companies and the skill sets which are there with the employees are different. That is called as a skill gap. Can I give you one example? Imagine you start a company. You will hire me for creation of software. You will hire me for coding purposes, right? You will have to basically you will tell me the requirement. I'll have to code either using Python, C language, C++ language, whatever language. I'll have to code and give you a software. But what if I I know how to write a mail, but I don't know how to write a code. Please think of it. I know how to write a mail. I know how to use laptops. I know how to use all of this. I know how to operate a machine, etc. But I don't know how to code. Now, please participate, all of you, and do let me know. In that case, can I simply say, I have skill sets, but the skill sets that I have are different compared to what you actually need. Can I call this situation as a skill gap? Let me know. Can I call this situation as a skill gap? So in case of India, yes, lot of population is there, which I can harness, which I can use to have demographic dividend, increase production, increase productivity, and contribute to higher GDP numbers. No doubt. But the problem is, lot of working population doesn't have skill sets. So if they do not have skill sets, I cannot employ them. I cannot give them better salary. They cannot move out of poverty. In addition to this, right, certain population which has skill sets are not the skill sets that I require, that I need today. That is skill gap. That is basically skill gap. So because of skill gap also, right, there will be issue regarding creation of employment, creation of jobs in India. So as per economic survey, please remember around 11 to 12% of the population has the skill sets, right? Remaining working population doesn't have access to skill set. Please have a look at the data here. In UK, 68% of the workforce has skill set. 52% of the workforce in USA has skill set. 24% in China has skill sets. 75% in Germany, 80% in Japan, etc. Whereas in case of India, it is hardly around 11 to 12%. Hardly around 11 to 12%. In addition to this, have you come across the Pratham report now? Please do let me know. Early morning, I'm asking you a question, right? You should be able to tell me. Have you very recently, in the last couple of days, have you heard of Pratham report, or let's say ASER? ASER. If you have not read it, please read it. It is not part of economics, but if you have not read it, please read it. That is my sincere advice to you. Why? You will be surprised to see what is the situation of education in India. Because whenever you want a job, there are two parts to it: whether you have a skill, and whether you have a right qualification. I hope you understand this. Whether you have skill plus whether you have the right qualification is also very important. For example, you want to apply for UPSC examination. Don't you think there is a need for having a degree? Correct? All of you will agree with me, right? Anybody who doesn't have a degree, do you think they'll be allowed to become an IS officer? Of course, no. You should have a degree. So qualification is part of the job, right? So if you are not qualified enough, right, educationally, if you're not qualified enough, doesn't matter how many youth you have, how many people you have, doesn't matter. Very difficult to provide them with jobs. And the problem here is, if you do not have qualification, skill set is part of other part, agreed. If you do not have qualification, automatically you'll become disqualified for many of the jobs. And if you're disqualified, if you're not eligible for applying many of these formal jobs, you'll have to be happy with agriculture labor. You'll have to be happy with informal work. And if you're part of the informal work or agriculture work, please do let me know. Do you think you can contribute in a right way for growth and development of India? Think of that implication also. Do you think you'll be able to contribute in a right way to the growth and development of India? Of course, no. Of course, no. Right? If you become part of agriculture labor, you have got very good skill set, but you do not have qualification. Right? No use of it. So that is the precise reason. That's a precise reason. All these points are important. Because many of you keep on asking me, sir, how do I use this data there? How do I use this there, etc. Now think of it. Don't you think education report is also very important when you're writing way forward, when you're writing recommendation to the government in, let's say, mains examination? Okay. So anyways, please have a look at this labor issues, right? One of the labor issue is actually skilled labor in availability in India, right? So we have discussed why there is a concept of jobless growth in India. Now let me continue and tell you what are the other labor issues. What are the other labor issues in India? All these are labor issues, but apart from this, what are the other labor issues? One, large working population in India, right? Around 48 to 49% of the working population involved in India is involved in agriculture sector. Now, many of you will say, sir, what is the problem? If let's say 49% of the working population is there in agriculture, what is the problem? Point number one, all of you know this, contribution of agriculture sector to GDP is how much? Around 16 to 18%. And from one year to next year, the data might change. Don't worry, it will be somewhere in the same range. Contribution of the agriculture sector to our GDP numbers is in the range of 16 to 18%. On one side, around 48% of the population is working, but the contribution to GDP is, let's say, around 18%. And don't you see there is a disproportionate, very high usage of labor in agriculture sector? Correct? There is a disproportionate, very, very high usage of labor in the agriculture sector. And some of you will ask me, sir, why? Why is that? Why are we using so much of labor in agriculture sector? Point one, lot of farmers who are cultivating on the land, do not have sufficient means, sufficient amount of money to purchase technology. Very simple. They do not have sufficient amount of money to purchase a technology, to use equipments, to use machineries. Right? So when you do not have sufficient money to purchase machinery and use technology, automatically you'll be dependent more and more on human labor. Second point is, lot of population in India either do not have sufficient skill sets or are not qualified enough, and both are generally not required to work in agriculture sector. Let me know, all of you will agree with me, right? You are not qualified enough to apply for a manufacturing job or let's say a government job. Same cannot be applied in case of agriculture sector. For example, if I want to work in your field, imagine this, you own a field. I want to work in a field. What is the work? I'll have to sow the seeds. You'll give me certain saplings like this. I'll have to keep on sowing the saplings like this or plant the saplings. Will you ask for a degree from me? Will you say, sir, if you are PhD qualified, if you have a MBA degree, right? If you have qualified for a bank exam, only then I will allow you to work on my field. Absolutely no. So requirement of qualification, requirement of skilling, right? Very, very negligible in agriculture sector. That is a precise reason lot of population will get enrolled or let's say will become part of agriculture sector. And third reason is, although economy grows, there may not be sufficient number of jobs available in Indian economy. That is also true, by the way, right? Although the economy is growing, there might be no sufficient number of jobs which require these kind of workers in the economy. For example, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by this? Please do let me know. In private sector and even in government, do you think all the jobs require certain educational qualification? Please think. Right, let's say private sector. In private sector, do you think all the jobs will have a qualification requirement mandatory? Absolutely no. The very, very low level jobs, there will be no educational qualification mandate as such. Right, certain jobs definitely yes, but very, very low paid jobs, they will not require educational qualification. Right, so argument is simple, there may not be sufficient number of jobs creation that is happening in the Indian economy. So some of the experts argue this way. Please understand my statement now. Some of the experts argue this way. It's not out of choice. I repeat, it's not out of choice that all the population which is working in agriculture wants to work in agriculture. Sometimes it is out of compulsion. Any problem with me? I'll repeat it again. Right? It's not out of choice that everybody who is working in agriculture wants to work in agriculture. Sometimes it is out of compulsion. Right? And because of compulsion, they may end up working in the agriculture sector. Okay, so large working population is involved in agriculture sector. Okay, and that is one more labor issues in India. Now, one more labor issue, female LFPR. And those who will start asking me, what is LFPR? Labor force participation rate. Labor force participation rate. Last class we have discussed this. What is labor force participation rate? Out of the total population, Out of total population, how much of the population is willing to work? Willing to work. Whether they get the job or no, that is different matter. How much of the total population is willing to work out of total population? That is called as labor force participation rate. Now, the labor force participation rate can be calculated for men also, women also. It can be calculated for men also as well as women also. Now, it has been seen in case of India. The female LFPR is lesser compared to male LFPR. Why so? I'll explain it. Have patience. The female LFPR has been lesser compared to male LFPR. Right? Now, question is why, sir? Why is that female LFPR is lesser, male LFPR is greater or higher than female LFPR? Simple. Point number one. Please do let me know whether you have observed this in your own home or some other home. Don't worry, but you tell me whether these points are correct or not. Don't you think some of the households in India will not allow women to work outside on security concerns, safety concerns? Please do let me know. Right, I'll repeat the statement again. Don't you think some of the households in India will not allow women to work, right? Will not allow women to work outside because there are safety concerns or security concerns. Point number one. Point number two, traditionally in India, it's wrong. I do not agree to that. I do not promote it. But traditionally in India, please tell me who is supposed to take care of household work? Who is supposed to take care of cooking work? Who is supposed to take care of cleaning work, etc.? Don't you think because of the system that we have agreed to, or we have basically implemented over a period of time, right? Don't you think female population, or let's say the female of the household, is supposed to do all of it? And if the workload is so high, work burden is so high, automatically they will drop out of labor force. Automatically they will drop out of labor force, right? Again, you must have seen this surrounding you only. Around you only, you must have seen this. Third one, if the parents become old, if a child is born, right, please tell me who is supposed to take care of aging parents? Traditionally in India, again, I don't promote it. Don't say, sir, how can you say this, etc., etc. Right? So I hope you understand. If the parents are becoming old, if the child is born, if the children are going to school, etc., etc. And interestingly, some of you are saying, sir, men take care of the parents. My dear, that is very, very small percentage. Very, very small percentage. Right? So traditionally, in case of India, if I'm married and I'm working, right, my wife is supposed to take care of my aging parents. My wife is supposed to take care of school going children, etc., etc. Right? So again, please understand, there are a lot of societal compulsions in India. That is a precise reason female LFPR, labor force participation rate, has been declining, has been dropping. And understand the next point as well. Many of these policies, right? In fact, many of the experts agree to this. Many of the policies of government of India actually force a laborer or employment or the employer to prefer a male workforce rather than the female workforce. Let me prove it to you. All of you know that in case of India, there is a concept of maternity leaves. Please do let me know. All of you know that in India, there is a concept of maternity leave, right? What happens in a maternity leave? A woman becomes pregnant and certain number of months paid leaves are provided. Now, because of such policies, not only in India, but around the world, because of such policies, what has generally happened is an employer will prefer to have a male employee rather than a female employee. Correct or not correct? Please think of it. Right? If you disagree, please do let me know what is your viewpoint also. Right? If a person wants to hire, right, because they know that if a female becomes pregnant, now they will have to pay a paid salary. They will have to give paid salary for 6 months, 6.5 months. Right? So what generally happens, what generally has been observed is, right, one, either the female itself will drop out of the labor force saying that I'm pregnant, or second, the employer himself will not, or will basically prefer to give more jobs to male employees rather than female employees. Those who are saying no, my dear, in that particular case, I will ask you to do one work, right? It is for your betterment. Please read the paper which has been published very recently by Claudia Goldin. Now you will have to tell me, all of you are seriously preparing for UPC, right? So you people tell me, right, what is the contribution of Claudia Goldin? Why this personality was there very recently in the newspapers, current affairs? Please do let me know. Some of you are saying, no, sir, you are wrong. I do not agree with your viewpoint. Now you tell me, what is the person, Miss Claudia Goldin? Why was she there in the newspaper very recently? She has won Nobel Prize in economics. She has won Nobel Prize in economics, and her study, she has studied to prove it. It's not out of thin air that I'm talking about it. She has studied to prove it. She has studied American employment market for over centuries. For multiple centuries, she has studied American labor market, right? And she says, when industrialization took place, labor or the jobs that were created, were predominantly for men, not for women. Think of it. When industrialization happened, when industrialization took place, the jobs which are created were for men, not for women. Why? Industrialization means machineries. Who will operate machineries? Traditionally, the idea of operating machineries has been allocated to men because they will have more strength, etc., etc. So she said, right, or her theory or her paper basically says, look at unemployment rate, look at LFPR of women during industrialization, it went down, whereas a male for male population, it actually increased. Then the introduction of contraceptives, right? Introduction of contraceptives became a boon for working women, right? They were able to take contraceptives, ensure that they are not, right, basically out of the labor force for a longer duration. So my argument is, if you disagree with me, okay, if you disagree with me, please read that particular paper. You will understand it, right? So historically, the theory says, or the paper says, there is a U-shaped curve, right? Initially there was employment, very high employment for women. Industrialization took place, right? It went down. Then certain reforms, such as right, the pills were introduced. Again, the labor force participation increased. Now, whether you agree or disagree doesn't matter. That's a fact. And if a Nobel laureate says, if you want to quote it in the exam, please quote it. Okay. So labor force participation rate in case of India was around 30.27% for women in 1990. It has declined. It has declined to 20.8%. Even today, the labor force participation rate is lower for women. We need to increase it. We need to promote it. Because please understand, there are certain sectors in the economy. Which would prefer to have more female working population. So we need to ensure that sufficient supply of labor, especially female labor, will also increase. Their empowerment will increase. Contribution to the economy will also increase, etc. So these are some of the labor market issues in India. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt regarding whatever points I've discussed, please do let me know. Okay. Now, what has the government of India done to promote skilling reforms? Right. I think so. Now reforms are there. What has the government of India done in order to promote employment in India? Example, skilling reforms. Government of India has implemented a lot of reforms to promote skilling in India. But please understand this, right? Please understand the logic behind this. Traditionally, in case of India, suddenly UPSC can throw this particular question. Traditionally, in case of India, the labor was supply driven. Traditionally, in case of India, the labor was supply driven. Now the government wants to make it as demand driven. Understand both of these terms. Traditionally, in case of India, the labor has been supply driven, but the government wants to make it as government wants to make it as demand driven labor. Now you will ask me, sir, what is a supply driven labor and demand driven labor? What does it mean? Let me give you two examples. Example one: I am the government. I will formulate a policy. I will provide you skilling. Now I want you to search for jobs in the market. Very simple. Please listen to me carefully. I'm the government. I've created a policy. Under policy, I will provide skilling to you. Now I want you to search for job in the market. Second example, I am government. Before skilling you, before providing you with training, I will study what kind of skill sets are demanded in Indian market. And for example, in your district, first I will conduct a survey. I'll conduct survey finding out what kind of industries are there, what kind of technology they are using, what kind of industries government is promoting in these districts in the next 2 years, etc. Now, based on my survey, I will decide, okay, demand for such technical people or such skilled people will be there. Now, I'll provide you training and you will get the or you will start searching for the jobs in the market. Please tell me which is a better way to provide skilling. Is the example one better way or example two better way for providing skilling? Think of it. According to you, right, which is a better way for providing skilling in India? A better way for providing skilling in India is example two, where first you will try to find out. First, you will try to find out what kind of demand is there in the market. You'll try to find out what kind of skill sets are demanded in the market. And based on that, you'll provide training. Now you want the labor to be employed in the market. Second example is called as a demand-driven labor. All of you agree with me? Second example is a demand-driven labor supply. And the first one is a supply-driven labor. I'll simply provide you training. I want you to search for jobs. What if the skilling that I've provided, the training that I've provided is providing you with skill set, but those skill set are not demanded in the market? Right? There will always be a skill gap in that particular case. That is the reason now, please remember this, especially under an initiative called as Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. I'm pretty sure all of you heard of it. If not, please remember this. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, PMKVY, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Government of India now says we want to have, right? We want to have a demand-driven labor, not supply-driven labor. We want to have demand-driven labor, right? And how are we trying to establish this idea of a demand-driven labor? At a district level, we have set up the promotion councils. At a district level, we have set up promotion councils. Skilling councils have been set up at district level. These skilling councils will first conduct a survey and try to basically find out what kind of labor is required, what kind of skill sets are required, etc., etc. And based on the requirement of the skill sets, now we'll create a program, we'll create a training model, we'll provide training to the people in the district. Now they'll find it easier to get jobs. Because please understand, some of you will say, sir, why are we taking district as a unit? Why not village, etc.? Please understand the logic behind it. Even though, and this is nothing new, it has been done for the last couple of years. Even though we are trying to find out estimate at a district level, many of the people who will get skilled under this, trained under these initiatives, they would prefer to remain with us in the same district. Lot of you, if given an opportunity, you would want to prefer and stay in your own district in terms of a job rather than shifting, relocating to something else or some other state, some other district. So that is the reason here the measurement of unit is a district. We will analyze the district first. We will conduct a survey, then provide training to the youth in that particular district so that it becomes easier for them to be absorbed in the labor market. So in terms of skilling, please understand, Skill India initiative has been launched back in the year 2015. Under Skill India initiative, we want to train totally 40 crore people. We also have a Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, PMKVY. Under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, right, the argument is the government of India will identify people and provide them with skill sets. Under PMKVY, now we have started providing demand-driven labor rather than supply-driven labor. Certain points regarding both these, PMKVY I've given in the table. Please go through that. Do not by heart the data here. For example, here, the PMKVY, the data says between financial 17 and 23, right? The PMKVI 2.0 was launched. More than 1 crore people have been trained. Out of that, so many people have been employed, etc., etc. Do not by heart this data. Why? Very soon, in the next 2 weeks, right? Let's say you will get economic survey. I've taken this data from last year's economic survey. You please take the updated data from upcoming economic survey. Very simple, right? I've taken this data from last year's economic survey, which means the data is already outdated. This year, when you will get the economic survey in the next 2 weeks, I'm 99% sure that they will give data regarding employment, not 99, 100% sure. Because generally there is one chapter on employment in every economic survey. So they will give you updated data, how many people they have trained, how many have been employed, etc., etc. Do not remember the numbers. Try to remember percentages. It is easier. So Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana has been implemented. Under this, there are two components. One is basically short-term training, where actual training will be provided. Skill sets will be provided. Second one is RPL, recognition of prior learning. RPL is recognition of prior learning. What do you mean by recognition of prior learning? Until now, you have acquired certain skill sets, either by observing others or by practicing, etc. You have got certain skill sets. You have already acquired certain skill set, but you did not go to any training institute, so you do not have a certificate. So under the recognition of prior learning, look at the term recognition of prior learning, a certificate will be issued because you already have acquired skill sets. So there are two components under this. Logic is simple. We will try to provide skill sets, train you, and provide certification so that you can be absorbed easily in the labor market. Apart from this, we also have a NAPS, National Apprenticeship Program. Apprenticeship means a training, right? A trainee. Generally, a 2-year duration training is provided, and government will provide certain stipend. Stipend means money. Certain amount of stipend will be given to these trainees so that they will have access to certain financial resources, get trained, and then absorbed in the market. So we have a Skill India, we have apprenticeship, we have a Kaushal Vikas Yojana, we have even job melas. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. Government organizes even job melas. What happens in a job mela? In case of a job mela, it is very simple. Government will try to bring together the people who are searching for the jobs. That is the job seekers as well as job providers. They'll try to bring both of them together in a job mela. And in job mela, right, interviews will be conducted, right, companies will hire people, etc. So job melas are also promoted by the government. Apart from these skilling initiatives, Startup India creates a lot of job opportunities in India. What about Make in India? 100 million jobs. If you remember, 100 million jobs is a target under Make in India. Government of India is trying to rationalize labor laws. What do you mean by rationalization? If you remember, I said central government and state governments both are having labor laws. Why? Concept of labor law, subject of labor law falls under the concurrent list. And because it falls under the concurrent list, both the center and state, both of them are allowed to formulate laws. And as a result of this, there are more than 100 labor laws in India, more than 100 labor laws. And it is very difficult for you to implement the provisions under all these labor laws. So what has the central government done now? Central government is trying to reduce the number of labor laws. In fact, central government has taken 30 labor laws, around 30 labor laws, and has consolidated them into 4 labor codes. Now, please think of it. Is it easier for you to implement 30 labor laws or 4 labor codes? Again, don't worry about provision, right? These will not be implemented in this year. Why? Elections are there. Next year also, I'm doubtful, right? So is it easier for you to follow the provisions under, let's say, 20 plus, 30 plus labor laws, or simply 4 labor codes? Right there itself, you'll have the idea. So government of India wants to reduce the number of labor laws so that the compliance requirements, the burden on the manufacturer, etc., will automatically come down. So we are rationalizing labor laws. And in the current affairs, please do let me know, are you coming across many of the state governments also making changes to their labor laws in order to attract manufacturers? Correct. Can I give you a couple of examples here? Tamil Nadu. The government of Tamil Nadu tried it. Government of Karnataka, right, is also doing it. They are trying to amend their labor laws, alter their labor laws so that they will be able to attract investors. MSME reforms, micro, small, medium enterprises. Why MSME sector is so important? MSMEs account for more than 11 crore jobs in India. More than 11 crore employment is generated in MSME. So obviously, the health of the MSME is important to ensure that these people will not lose jobs. And most of these MSMEs are informal in nature. Lot of jobs created in India are informal in nature, casual in nature. So MSME sector plays a very important role. Government has implemented multiple reforms to have stability in the MSME sector. And finally, right, various skilling initiatives that we have discussed a couple of minutes ago. So these are some of the reforms which have been undertaken by the government in order to protect employment, promote more and more employment in India. Now, regarding employment, there is one more concept very often cited in the newspapers now. Regarding employment, there is this idea of a gig work. Gig work. Now, what is this concept of a gig worker? Right? How do you define a term gig work or gig worker? Please understand this. There is one term traditional employee employer relationship. Traditional employee employer relationship. What do you mean by a traditional employee employer relationship? If you join a company, let's say you're a software engineer, you join a software company such as Infosys, such as TCS, right? Whatever the company it is. If you join as a full-time employee, what is the process? You'll have to sign an agreement, correct? Employment contract is there, right? You will have to sign an agreement. And when you sign the agreement, the terms of the work, that is how many days you are supposed to work, what is the salary that will be paid to you, what are the hidden benefits? Please remember this. What are the hidden benefits that the company will be providing to you? Now, many of you ask me, sir, what do you mean by hidden benefits? What if the company provides you life insurance, health insurance, not only to you, but your spouse also, but your children also? Company will provide you bonus. Company will provide you paid leaves, right? Etc. etc. All these are called as hidden benefits. So whenever the company, right, or whenever there is a traditional employee employer, I repeat, traditional employee employer relation, there is a contract, there is an agreement, right? The agreement will stipulate the salary, agreement will stipulate number of working days, agreement will stipulate hidden benefits that will be provided by the employer to the employee. That is called as a traditional employer employee relation. But in recent times, this concept of a gig work has become very famous in India. How do you define who is a gig worker? Please understand, a gig worker is a person who will perform a work or participate in a work arrangement, and because he is performing this work, they will be earning because of this work. But please understand, many of you now will say, but sir, in traditional arrangement also it is there, I am doing work, I am getting salary, how is this different? Please understand, if you are a software employee, at the end of the month your salary is fixed. Correct? All of you will agree? If you're a software employee, at the end of the month, you will get, let's say, 1 lakh rupee fixed. Right? That salary is fixed. Whether you're contributing 9 hours full day or you're contributing only for 8 hours, 1 hour, you're taking a lot of break, etc. etc. Doesn't matter. The salary at the end of the month, it's already fixed. Right? The certain number is already there. But in case of a gig worker, let me take one example so that you understand. Ola cab drivers. Ola cab drivers are gig workers. Or else another example, delivery partners. All of you heard of delivery partners? That is a Zepto delivery partner, Swiggy delivery partner, right? Or Zomato delivery partner. So if you're an Ola cab driver, at the end of the month, how much money you are going to earn depends on how many rides you have taken. If you're a Zepto delivery partner, if you're a Swiggy delivery partner, at the end of the month, how much money you're going to earn depends on right? How many deliveries you have done on day-to-day basis, right? So understand the logic here. A gig worker is one who will participate in a work arrangement where based on the participation the money is earned. And generally remember this, a gig worker doesn't get access to hidden benefits. A gig worker doesn't get access to hidden benefits, right? Many of these companies who will employ gig workers, they will not give them, right, let's say paid leaves. Earned leave concept is not there, bonus is not there, etc., etc. Hidden benefits are not provided. There is no compulsion on the company to provide hidden benefits to a gig worker. So this is basically a definition of a gig worker, or a very common term which most of you might be using, freelancers. Correct? A lot of you will be using a term freelancers. Freelancers are nothing but gig workers. If you're doing a freelancing, or freelancing work means, sir, I'm working as a software professional, but not with one company, but with multiple companies. Multiple companies, right? I'll do work for company A, company B, company C, etc. Freelancers are nothing but part of gig workers. Now, what are the points in favor of gig economy in India, gig working in India? Point number one, lot of jobs are getting created in India. A lot of jobs which are getting created are basically, right, part-time jobs in India. Companies say, I do not want to hire a full-time employee because I don't know what will be the market situation after 3 months. So I want to have this particular, right, freedom. I want to have this freedom. If I want to employ more people today, I should be allowed to. If I want to have lesser number of people after 3 months, I should be allowed to. Gig economy will provide that kind of freedom to employer. Is it okay? The gig economy will provide that kind of freedom to the employer. For example, tomorrow, please do participate and do let me know. Can Zomato simply say, today, right, I will not allocate any orders to you? Right? Not possible. For the next 3 months or after today, I'll not allocate any job orders to you. Why? I don't have so many orders to give to you. Right? So I have sufficient number of people who are already there. So I will not give you these orders. Possible? Of course, yes, possible. Freedom is there. But if you're a full-time employee in a software company, if your manager doesn't allocate work to you, you are happy. Correct? If you're a full-time employee in a company, if you're a software engineer, you have logged in to your work at around 10 o'clock, your manager has not allocated any work to you, you'll say, fine, I'll be very happy, I'll sit quietly, arams, I'll not even remind manager that there is no work. Why? You know, if the manager fails to allocate work on that day, that is his problem, not your problem. You are an employee, you have logged on, you will log on at 10 o'clock, you will log out at 7 o'clock, at the end of the month, you will take salary your home. Right? So argument is simple. In case of a gig economy, provides a lot of flexibility for the employer, and it provides flexibility for the employee as well. How so? You're not bound to only one company. You are your own boss. Many of the freelancers will be telling the same thing. I do not want to be slave to one company. I want to be my own boss. That is, I want to decide when I want to work. I want to decide to whom I want to work. I want to decide what I want to work. Right? So it will provide a lot of flexibility for both employer as well as employee. Employee can work for multiple organizations in a gig economy. Of course, yes. That is perfectly all right. Please understand there are two terms here. If you're a freelancer, completely a freelancer, you can work for multiple companies. No company can withhold you from doing that. But there is one more term, moonlighting. Right? Very famous now. There is one more term called as moonlighting. Many of you just get confused between moonlighting and gig economy. In moonlighting, please understand what is moonlighting? A full-time worker. A full-time worker for a company will also work for other companies as a freelancer. Understand my statement? Right? Just to make it much more clear. Imagine I'm a software engineer, full-time employee of Infosys company. So I will work in Infosys company from 10 to 6, 9 to 6, whatever the timing is. I will work in Infosys company from 10 to 6. After 6 o'clock, let's say from 7 o'clock, I'll start working on my part-time job as a freelancer with another company. Is it okay? All of you understand this idea of a moonlighting? I'm a full-time employee. I'm not a freelancer in all the companies. I'm a full-time employee in a company, but after I finish the work in one company, I will start working for another company part-time as a freelancer. That is called as a moonlighting. Now, why this is called as a moonlighting, right? Why the term moonlighting specifically? Can I simply say after 6 o'clock means after evening, or let's say evening when moonlight will start coming? That is the reason this process is called as moonlighting. This situation is called as moonlighting. Now, please understand, moonlighting is different, and being full time, right, freelancer is different. In moonlighting, you have a full time employment. You have a contract. You have an employee agreement with a company, right? And after you're working for one company as a full time employee, you're working for another company. And very recently, many companies such as Infosys, such as Wipro, they have said we will not allow moonlighting of our workers. Is it okay? Right? Many of these companies, such as Wipro, such as Infosys, etc., they said we will not allow moonlighting of our companies. We will not allow moonlighting of the companies. Right? Why? We feel that they are basically working at two places, which our contract doesn't allow. And their argument is simple. Their argument is simple. When you're working with me as a full-time employee, you might be getting access to certain sensitive information. You might be getting access to the products which we are developing. Now, if you start working as a freelancer with another company, right, we might be losing that advantage. So that is the reason some companies do not allow it, some companies do allow it. For example, Swiggy, check it. Swiggy has a moonlighting policy. Swiggy says you're a full-time worker with me, and after that you want to work for somebody else as a freelancer, we will allow it. But these are conditions. Some companies allow it, some companies do not allow it. But come back to the idea of a gig worker. Employees can have a flexibility of working for multiple organizations. Generally, this is allowed. Okay. Companies do not have to hire full time and do not have to incur the cost for it. Right? For example, if you're a full time employee, there's a component called as EPF, Employee Provident Fund. Employee Provident Fund, some of the component has to be paid by the employer. Some of the components have to be paid by the employer. Some money has to be paid by the employer. So hidden benefits are not provided by the employer. So that is a reduced cost of operations. It will contribute to a lot of employment growth rate in the Indian economy. So these are certain points in favor of gig economy, in favor of gig work. Having said so, there are certain concerns as well. There are certain issues as well regarding gig economy or gig working. Point number one, in gig economy, there is no guaranteed salary. I'll repeat the statement, right? There is no guaranteed salary. There is no guaranteed salary here. It all depends on how much work you're contributing, how many deliveries you are doing, how many, like, let's say, how many passengers you are providing the services to. So there is no guaranteed salary at the end of the month. Point number two, in gig economy, it is expected that the job seeker, that is the employee, will have to make certain investment. Many of you ask me, sir, what is this minimum investment or certain investment that you're referring to? Imagine I want to become Ola cab driver, gig economy. I want to become Ola cab driver. Does it not necessarily mean I should invest and purchase a car or take a car on lease? I will have to purchase a car now, etc. Or else I'll give you one more example. If I want to become a Zomato delivery partner, does it not necessarily mean that I should have a bike or right a bicycle, a cycle, or right at least a horse now? Have you seen that? Right, a Zomato delivery, Swiggy delivery partners going on horses to provide food delivery. So argument is simple. I'm expected to make investment. Even if you disagree with this, all of you will agree I will have to purchase a smartphone now. Let me know. Even if you disagree, sir, no, sir, I will not agree to point A, point B, etc. At least I will have to spend money and purchase smartphone. And the Niti Aayog report. Last year there was a report by Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog report itself says the gig economy where the incomes are so low, incomes are very, very low in gig economy. When the incomes are so low, you're expecting this delivery partner, you're expecting these service providers to invest and purchase a smartphone, which is also costly in India. And when I say costly, don't tell me, sir, it is available at 10,000, it is available at 12,000. You're talking about a person whose monthly income could be 10,000 rupees. I hope you understand. Right? You're talking about a person whose monthly income could be 10,000. You are expecting the person to spend 10,000 rupees to purchase a smartphone. And in many of these cases, Niti Aayog report also flagged this. In many of these cases, these are the only people who are the breadwinners of the household. These are the only people who are earning livelihood in a household. So imagine to what extent, right, the financial pressure will be created on the gig economy or gig worker. So employees generally are not provided with the hidden benefits. Employees do not have any kind of job security. They can be removed at any point of time. No guaranteed growth in the job role. Growth means you join as a delivery partner. You'll have to continuously work as a delivery partner only. There is no guarantee that you will be promoted. But you tell me, if you join as an IS officer today, don't you expect promotions from Government of India? Correct? All of you agree? If you join as a software engineer in a private sector company, will you not expect promotions to be given to you by software company? Of course, yes. You should be given promotions after 2 years, after 3 years. Otherwise, there is no point in staying at the same level in a company. Jump to another company, get promoted there. So, in case of a gig economy, there is no guaranteed growth. You can join as a delivery partner. If you work for 10 years, if you work for 15 years, there is no guarantee they are going to promote you. Employee may have to make certain amount of investment in purchasing a car, in purchasing a bicycle, in purchasing a smartphone, etc. Upskilling may not be provided by the company. Upskilling means, right, there are certain skill sets which are required if you want to move vertically upwards. Vertically upwards, certain skill sets are required. So the company may not provide you those skill sets because you are a part-time employee, you are a freelancer, you are a gig worker. And finally, companies do not expect loyalty from the employees, and the same vice versa. Employees also know company can remove me at any point of time. They also do not have any kind of loyalty only to one company. So these are some of the points against this argument of gig worker or gig economy in India. Huh. Please do let me know if there are any issues, any points you want me to repeat, etc. Otherwise, I'll go to the next chapter, inclusive growth, or next concept, inclusive growth. Most of the concerns are only for employee, not for company. My dear company, please understand, they will prefer gig workers. Concern is there for company because tell me, imagine you're a freelancer. I'm sorry, imagine you're a company, I'm a freelancer, right? For you it is an advantage because you do not have to provide me hidden benefits, you do not have to be worried about following government guidelines, etc. But is there a concern for the company? For gig worker, is there a concern for the company? Of course, yes. Tomorrow I might simply go and join another company and say I'll not be working for you, although I'm a freelancer. Tomorrow I might simply jump from providing services to you only to some other company. For example, think of it, tomorrow can suddenly lot of Zomato drivers shift to Swiggy. Let me know, tomorrow suddenly lot of delivery partners of Zomato, can they shift to Swiggy, right? Don't you think being highly dependent on these delivery partners, there will be disruption which will be created in Zomato's deliveries. Right, so high dependence can also become a negative point, can also backfire over a period of time. Okay, anyways, can we go forward? Any questions, any other concern? Please do let me know. Please tell about UV curve. What is UV curve? I don't know what UV curve you're talking about. I do not have any idea of what is UV curve. Right, please clarify your question. Okay, any other question, any other doubts? Any other question or any other doubts? Please do let me know. Okay, let me go forward. Concept of inclusive growth. Idea of inclusive growth. Point number one, right? Again, please understand, whatever I'm going to discuss under inclusive growth, it's basically a summation of what we have discussed in the last 23 classes. In inclusive growth, if you want to understand inclusive growth, you should be clear about what we have discussed in the last 20 plus classes. If you know what we have discussed, if you summarize all of it, it will be connected to inclusive growth, right? Now, what is the definition of inclusive growth? Last week we have discussed this, right? The inclusive growth refers to both pace and pattern of growth. Inclusive growth refers to pace and pattern of growth. Pace and pattern of growth. Now, what is this pace and pattern of growth? Whenever you have an economy, you will experience a certain GDP growth or GDP expansion. You'll experience GDP expansion. And when you experience a GDP expansion, what we generally expect is the benefits of higher GDP. The benefits of higher GDP. What do you mean by benefits of higher GDP? Basically, it is in terms of higher job generation, higher salaries which will go to employees, higher, right, let's say incomes earned by the farmers, lower pollution because we'll use better technologies now, less polluting technologies, etc., etc. So what we expect is whenever there is a higher growth, higher expansion in the GDP, the benefits of these growth will also reach to all the sections of the society. Because please tell me, think of this logic and let me know. Example 1, right? I'll give you two examples. Example 1, let's say there are three people in India. Let's say there are three people. A is earning 100 rupee, B is earning, right, let's say 500 rupee, and C is earning, right, let's say 1600 rupee. So total GDP, right? Again, when you say, so how can I get GDP, etc., please go back to the second and third class. We have discussed how using incomes you can calculate GDP. So total GDP here will be how much? 2200. Total GDP will be 2200. And example 2, A will earn 0 rupee now, B will earn 100 rupee, and C will earn 2500 rupee. Now GDP will be 2600. Very simple question to you people. Don't you think from example 1 to example 2, our GDP has expanded? Please do let me know. Right? Don't you think from example 1 to example 2, our GDP has expanded? Answer is yes. But, right, don't you think at the same point of time, the income inequality has increased? At the same time, the situation of workers in India, situation of people in India has become worse now. So my argument is that when you say pace and pattern of growth, it's not just sufficient to achieve a higher GDP. It's not just sufficient to achieve higher GDP. It is also equally important to ensure that benefits of the GDP will reach to other sections of the society as well. For example, rather than example 2, what if example 3 was the outcome? Rather than moving from here to here, what if we had moved from here to here? Meaning what? Let's under example 3, A will earn 200 rupees. B will earn, let's say 600 rupees. And C will earn, right, that is 1800 rupees. C will earn 1800 rupees. Now, even if you get A plus B plus C, here GDP will be how much? 2600. Now, please tell me, would you prefer movement from example 1 to example 2 or movement from example 1 to example 3? All of you will agree, sir, moving from example 1 to example 3 is better. Growth is happening. Benefits of the growth are reaching to all the sections of the society. We are ensuring that the benefits will reach to sections of the society. That is basically the argument of pace as well as pattern of growth. Pace as well as pattern of growth. So we should be focusing on the pace also. We should be focused on the pattern also. And tell me now, don't you think both pace and pattern are connected to each other? I'll repeat the statement. Both pace and pattern are connected to each other. You should be addressing both of them together, not independently, right? You should be addressing both of them together. Many of you will ask me, how, sir? how both pace and pattern are connected. What if government of India will ensure we will impose higher taxes on rich people, use it, provide schooling to the children, will provide skilling to the people, will provide more tax incentives so that production will be promoted in certain areas, etc. We will provide housing for the poor people, will provide health facilities for the poor people, clean drinking water facility for the poor people, will provide assistance to farmers. So please understand, there's a very close linkage between growth as well as development. Growth is a quantitative concept, development is a qualitative concept. Both are connected, both are not independent, both are connected. We should be promoting both of them together. That is basically the definition of inclusive growth. And whenever you say inclusive growth, what are the characteristics? What are the salient features of inclusive growth? What generally do you observe when you say you want to achieve inclusive growth? You will see that farmer incomes will start increasing. The pollution that we are contributing will also start coming down. We'll start try to control the pollution. Employment growth rate will be higher. More and more jobs are getting generated. Industrial growth rate will start increasing. Right? We'll ensure that people who do not have access to banking services, pension services, right, etc., or life insurance services, financial services, will ensure that that population will also get financially included, etc. So whenever you say inclusive growth, what are you expecting? What are the features? If I say India is achieving inclusive growth, what should I observe in the economy? These are the observations. You'll be able to observe rising incomes of the people. You'll be able to observe farmers earning more, poverty coming down, income inequality coming down, people getting included financially, right, etc., etc. All these are basically the features of the salient features of inclusive growth. Done. Right? So this is basically the definition of inclusive growth. Now the question is, has India achieved inclusive growth? Has India achieved inclusive growth? The answer is no. We're trying. We are moving towards inclusive growth. We have implemented a lot of reforms, but as of even today, we are yet to achieve inclusive growth. Point number one, population living in extreme poverty is higher in India. Population living in extreme poverty is higher in India. Right? That is, even today, crores of people, right, can be classified as poor in India. Right? So that is one point. India houses one of the highest number of poor in the world. India houses one of the highest numbers of poor in the world. Right? So obviously, yes, we need to reduce the population which can be classified as poor. Second, there are also issues of underemployment and unemployment. There are also issues of underemployment as well as unemployment. This is a fact, by the way. There are also issues of underemployment and unemployment. Right? So India experiences underemployment, India experiences unemployment rate also. Third one, income and wealth inequality is higher in India. Income and wealth inequality is higher in India, right? So income and wealth inequality is higher. And just to be very careful, I'll show this report. I'll go back to previous slide. Don't worry. Many will basically be confused between even now income and wealth. Income means the source of money. Income is how much salary you are earning. Wealth is how much assets you are owning. All of you will be okay with this? Income is Income is how many rupees, how much salary you are earning, and the wealth is how much assets you are having. In case of India, there is a huge amount of income inequality as well as wealth inequality. Just to prove my point, please look at World Inequality Report. Just look at World Inequality Report. According to World Inequality Report, there is a huge amount of wealth inequality as well as income inequality in India. How much? In case of income inequality, the top, the top 1% account for around 22% of total incomes generated in India. Right, the top 22%. When I say, sorry, top 10% to top 1%. When I say top 1, top 10, what does it mean? If all of us are arranged in descending order of our incomes or wealth, Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. If I say top 1% is earning so much income, what does it mean? If I arrange all the people in India in descending order of their income, the top 1% of the people will earn how much? Right? So in case of India, the top 1% of the population earns around 22% of the income, and bottom 50% of the population earns right, how much? Please have a look at it. Around 13% of the income. 13% of the income. So please be very careful. So here itself, please do let me know, is there income inequality? All of you will agree? Is there income inequality, huge income inequality? Of course, yes. GDP is expanding, but the benefits of the GDP is getting concentrated in the top 1%, top 10% of the population. Very small fraction of it, just a fraction of it, is reaching to the bottom part of the society. So huge income gap is there. And some of you, interestingly, you are adding the percentages and you're saying, sir, it is not equal to 100%. Right, my dear, please focus, be very careful. Right, it's not a pie chart. Some of you are basically adding all the percentages and saying, sir, it is not equal to 100%, the data is wrong, etc. My dear, please tell me, if I'm accounting for top 1% and also top 10%, don't you think top 1% automatically will become top 10%? Or it will become part of top 10%? Some of you are trying to, right, prove me wrong here. I'm telling about those people. I don't want to take their names, right? It's not important, right? Some of you will add these numbers and say, sir, it is not equal to 100%. 22%, 57%, 79. 79 plus, right, 13% will take me to 92. 92 plus another 30%, 122%. It should be 100, it is 122%, you'll say. My dear, it is not exclusive. The numbers are not exclusive to each other. It is inclusive. Top 1% automatically will become part of top 10%. So you will not get these 100%. Do not worry about it. But my question is simple. Are you able to see huge income inequality? Yes. Right side, you see. What about wealth inequality? The top 1% controls, owns 33% of total wealth in India. The bottom 50% controls around 6% of the wealth in India. Again, is there a huge wealth inequality? Yes, there is a huge wealth inequality as well. So income inequality is there, wealth inequality. What about gender inequality? Gender income inequality. Is there gender income inequality? Of course, yes. There is a huge gender income inequality in India. As per the same report, around 18% of the total incomes, I repeat, around 18% of total incomes generated in India are generated by women. 82% are earned by male population, right? So there is a huge income inequality that is generated, that is present in case of India. So income as well as wealth inequality is a problem. We will have to address it. We will have to reduce it. Regional imbalances are also existing. Regional differences, regional imbalances, regional disparities are existing even today. Some of the states are contributing very high in terms of declining poverty. Some of the states generate a large amount of GDP. Some of the states generate a lot of jobs, right? Account for a lot of jobs which are generated in India. So there is a huge diversity, huge, right? Let's say diversion, huge gap between the states in India in terms of GDP, in terms of welfare, etc., etc. Industrial growth rate is adding to a lot of pollution in India. India is one of the largest polluters in the international market. So to answer this question, has India achieved inclusive growth? No, we are in the process of achieving inclusive growth. We are in the process of achieving inclusive growth. Why should India achieve inclusive growth? Point number one, India has the largest population now. Correct? All of you will agree? Anybody will disagree with me when I say population of India? So India has the largest population. So you will have to take care of all the population, all the people of India. India is suffering from certain low development indicators, such as right, malnutrition, right, poverty, literacy rates, sanitation issues, corruption at various government levels, etc. certain development indicators were lagging behind compared to global economies. And what about economic indicators? Because of pandemic, because of internal factors, because of external factors, etc., there are certain economic indicators where we need to perform better, where there is a requirement of performing better now. For example, employment growth rate. Right? Don't you think we should perform much better, much better compared to what we are performing today, so that we'll be able to generate more and more jobs? Right? What about rise in incomes? We should be able to improve that also, right? So GDP, industrial production, right, etc. We should be improving in all these economic indicators as well. Although there is a higher GDP, India is one of the largest growing economies in the world. Although GDP is increasing, right? Let's say the GDP growth rate is one of the fastest in the global market. The benefits of the growth is not reaching everyone. We say it is more of an exclusive growth rather than inclusive growth. It is more of exclusive growth rather than inclusive growth. So these are some of the reasons why India needs to promote inclusive growth in India. Anybody has got any kind of doubt regarding whatever I've discussed so far? Please do let me know. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt regarding what I've discussed so far? Huh? Okay, done. Let me go forward. What are the issues related to inclusive growth? What are the issues? What are the concerns? What are the points related to, right, inclusive growth? First one, growth and development both are related to each other. Growth and development both are related to each other. Both are connected to each other. Government should not focus only on one of them and assume second one will automatically happen. For example, please do let me know. Please go back to the first 5-year plan. Please go back to the first 5-year plan and let me know. All of you will agree if I say in the first 5-year plan, government targeted growth and expected, sorry, government targeted growth and expected that development will happen automatically. Let me see how many of you are revising. Let me see how many of you are revising. Government targeted high growth rate and expected development will take place automatically. Trickle down. We believed in trickle down, right? So we expected high GDP means high jobs, high salaries, high incomes, high wages, and benefits would automatically go to people. This was our expectation. This was our expectation. Did that happen? No. That is the reason after third, fourth, 5-year plan, we had to change the policies altogether. Right? So growth and development both are connected to each other. Government should not target only one and assume second one will happen automatically. That is one. Second one, the number of poor must be reduced. Number of poor must be reduced, not just only in percentage, but also in absolute. I'll repeat the statement. The number of poor must be reduced, not just in percentage, but also under absolute numbers. What do you mean by absolute numbers? Right? I think I've given you this example earlier also. Let me know. 10 people are poor out of 100 people. 200 people are poor out of, let's say, 10,000 people. Think of it. Right? 10 people are poor out of 100 people. This will be how much? 10 percentage poverty. Poverty is 10 percentage. Here, right, poverty is 2 percentage. So government will say percentage poverty has reduced in India. Percentage poverty has reduced, has come down in India. But does it mean the number of people who are absolutely poor, number of people who can be classified as poor has come down? Not necessarily. I hope you understand. I'm talking about poverty because I don't know how many of you are reading newspapers. Is there a discussion regarding poverty very recently in the current affairs? Let me know. Right? Please do let me know. Are you seeing a discussion regarding poverty in case of India very recently in the current affairs? Right? Those who are wondering, sir, what are you talking about? There is a report which has been published, right? There is a index which is published by Niti Aayog, multi-dimensional poverty index. Right? I'll connect current affairs here. Please listen to me carefully now. There is this index which is published by Niti Aayog, which is called as Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index, MPI. Under MPI, there are three very important, right? Let's say there are three components, and under three components, there are totally 12 indicators. Is it okay? What are the three components? Right? One is health, the second one is education, third one is standard of life. One is health, second one is education, third one is standard of life. HEL. Just to make it easier, some of you will be saying economics is like a hell. Correct? Many of you will keep on saying economics is like a hell for me. I don't understand. Economics is hell. I feel very disturbed by economics. So congratulations, you can remember something from economics now. Health, education, and standard of living. All of you will agree? Health, education, and standard of living. Right? So these are the three very important parameters. Under these parameters, there are totally 12 indicators. And what DTAC does is they will measure the households based on the performance of the households under all the 12 parameters. And if you're not performing well, in at least four of these indicators, then you're classified as multi-dimensionally poor. Is it okay? I'll repeat it, right? Current affairs, I'll repeat it. The Niti Aayog publishes an index called as a multi-dimensional poverty index, MPI. MPI. And please understand there are two types of indices. One is published by United Nations. I'll just take a detour here. Listen to me very carefully. One is published by United Nations. Another one is published by Niti Aayog. United Nations also has the same parameters, health, education, and the standard of living. But 10 indicators are there. 10 indicators are there. Whereas Niti Aayog's multi-dimensional poverty index, right, and this is called as a human development index, HDI. Niti Aayog's multi-dimensional poverty index has totally 12 indicators. Please remember this. Has totally 12 indicators, two more compared to United Nations. And these 12 indicators are further basically classified under three parameters. One is health, second one is education, third one is standard of living. Third one is standard of living or living standards. There are three components under health, three indicators under health, two indicators under education, and 7 indicators under standard of living. Totally 12. If they feel that upon the survey, if the Niti Aayog feels that you are deprived, you're not performing well in at least 4 of these 12 indicators, you are classified as a multi-dimensionally poor. That's a basic argument. So understand the point here. It's not just sufficient to reduce the percentage of poverty. It is equally important to reduce the number of poor in absolute numbers. We should target and reduce the number of poor in absolute numbers, so that then we can simply say, right, no doubt the quality of life has actually improved for most of the population. Benefits of these reforms have not reached everyone. Even today, there are middlemen in some of these initiatives. Even today, right, there is corruption at certain levels. Even today, there is misuse of some of the schemes of Government of India. Right, so benefits of these schemes, no doubt Government of India is trying. Benefits of the schemes even today is not reaching to many of the beneficiaries. There is a misuse of these funds. Social infrastructure development historically has been neglected. But government in the last 1.5 decade, 2 decades have started promoting the social infrastructure also. For example, schooling infrastructure, sanitation infrastructure, housing infrastructure, etc. Next, we also need to promote investments in research and development so that the technology available in domestic market will improve. The cost of the technology, affordability will improve. Many of these healthcare services will become cheaper, etc. Right? So these are some of the issues which are associated with the concept of inclusive growth. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Please do let me know. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Anybody has got any kind of doubt? Nobody has got any kind of doubt. Okay, let me go forward. Now, I've given a mind map. I've given a mind map here. This mind map will basically tell you what kind of reforms. Again, please understand, it's not an exhaustive mind map. It is a very, very illustrative, limited reforms I've mentioned here. Limited number of reforms I've mentioned. So, in order to achieve inclusive growth, what reforms have been implemented by the government? What kind of reforms have been implemented by the government over a period of time? You can see for agriculture sector, right? For agriculture sector, there will be reforms such as PM Kisan, right? Fertilizer subsidy, etc. For promotion of financial inclusion, you can simply say Atal Pension Yojana, Jan Dhan Yojana. For promotion of industrialization or industries, Startup India, Make in India. For skilling initiatives, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Skill India Initiative, Job Melas, etc. For protection of environment, promotion of electric vehicles, promotion of wind energy, promotion of solar energy, for promotion of rural development. To promote rural India, we are having housing initiatives, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, PMAY, urban component, rural component. We have right BharatNet initiative to provide high-speed internet, broadband connectivity to all the villages in India, etc. So many of these initiatives. Again, please understand. Some of you are asking, sir, from where should I read all of these? You will get India Yearbook. There is a book by Government of India called as India Yearbook. Very bulky book. Very bulky book. Please don't read everything from India Yearbook. What I want you people to read is schemes. The best source of schemes from where you can get is the PIB, Press Information Bureau, plus India Yearbook. You will get from multiple organizations, you will get the schemes, books, etc. But if you want to say, sir, I want to read from authentic source, what is the best source for me? Press Information Bureau plus India Yearbook. Right? So you can use these two very important sources to understand about schemes. What is the nodal agency? What are the areas where we are implementing, etc., etc. You can use India Yearbook as well as PIB to understand about all of these schemes. Done? Right? So these are the points I wanted to discuss regarding inclusive growth. Now, please do let me know anybody has got any kind of a doubt regarding what I've discussed so far. Are we measuring poverty now according to poverty line or according to MPI, or we are using both? My dear, the last time when we actually measured poverty using poverty line was Suresh Tandalkar committee. Suresh Tandalkar committee, very famously called as Tandalkar committee. Tandalkar committee gave a poverty line based on expenses. For a household, what should be the minimum monthly expenditure to be classified as above poverty line and below poverty line? That was the last committee whose recommendations were accepted by the government. 2009. After that, there was a criticism. There's a criticism that, okay, that is not sufficient. The number that has been recommended, expenditure that has been recommended by Tandalkar committee is not sufficient. Government set up one more committee, Rangarajan committee. The Rangarajan committee gave recommendations, gave a higher poverty line. Government of India has not accepted it. And thereafter, we introduced the concept of multidimensional poverty index, MPI. Niti Aayog introduced the concept of multidimensional poverty index. As of now, Government of India actually uses multidimensional poverty index to talk about poverty. Not right. No, they will not generally not take Tandalkar committee or even Rangarajan committee. Can we go forward now? Let me know. Can we go forward? Anybody has got any other kind of a doubt? Please do let me know. Anybody has got any other kind of a doubt regarding what I've discussed so far? Okay, what is UV? Okay, that curve you're talking. Okay. You said suddenly UV, I got confused. I said, I don't know any kind of UV curve. UV curve, beverage curve. There's a curve called as a beverage curve. Beverage curve, please understand, provides an inverse relationship. Okay, beverage curve provides an inverse relationship between employment rate, here is employment rate, and job vacancy. It provides an inverse relationship between employment, employment rate, sorry, not employment, my mistake, unemployment rate, right? Unemployment rate, because Phillips curve as well as Beveridge curve both talk about unemployment rate. Okay, inverse relationship between unemployment rate as well as the job vacancy. Right? Basically, it means whenever the unemployment rate is very low, right, the jobs are available, search for the jobs are very high, companies are trying to hire more and more people. It's a inverse relation. It provides an inverse relationship between the job vacancy rate as well as unemployment rate. Okay, done. Any other doubt? V-shaped recovery, right? What is V-shaped recovery? Please understand, in recent times there is a discussion of two types of curves. One is called, right, K-shaped recovery, right? I'm 100% sure I discussed K-shaped recovery earlier, correct? Right, in the context of many of the topics I discussed a K-shaped recovery. Now there is one more discussion, right? There is one more set of experts who say, no, India is not experiencing K-shaped recovery. India is experiencing V-shaped recovery. And please understand, both the sides will have their own set of arguments to prove either we are experiencing K-shaped or V-shaped. What do you mean by V-shaped recovery? V-shaped means economy will contract, right? The vertical line will always represent GDP. Vertical line will represent GDP, horizontal line, x-axis will represent time. X-axis time, y-axis GDP. Economy will contract suddenly like this. There is a sudden contraction in the economy. Sudden, that's very important. And right, there is a sudden recovery, expansion in the economy. Is it okay? There is a sudden, immediate contraction is experienced, and after certain contraction, there is an immediate rebound in the economy. Economy will rebound so to achieve a higher GDP. This kind of a recovery is called as a V-shaped. You will have to use the term immediate. Immediate, you will have to use it, or sudden contraction, you will have to use it. Otherwise, if you say economy will contract and recover, can it be U-shaped recovery also? Think of it. Can it be U-shaped recovery? But what is the difference between a U-shaped and a V-shaped recovery? In V-shape, sudden contraction and sudden expansion. Correct? Sudden contraction and sudden expansion. Suddenly the contraction will experience, and suddenly the recovery will also happen. Economy will rebound. Whereas in case of U-shape, the contraction will happen slowly. Contraction will happen slowly and recovery will also happen slowly, right? So there's a difference. Government of India says we are experiencing V-shaped recovery. Government of India espouses that we are experiencing, supports the argument of V-shaped recovery in Indian economy. But various experts say, no, there is no V-shaped recovery. There is K-shaped recovery. There is K-shaped recovery, right? Why? Please look at what is happening to poor people in India. Look at what is happening to job generation in India. Look at what is happening. Why are you providing free food grains for 5 years then? Etc. etc. Which means the situation for certain people has become much worse, right? Even though the economy is recovering. So V-shaped, K-shaped, U-shaped. In fact, there are multiple types of shapes of recoveries. But in current affairs, they are discussing two types. One is V-shaped and the other one is K-shaped. Done? Can we go forward? Can we go forward? Any other doubts? Next concept I'll be discussing is concept of IMF, International Monetary Fund. The last one for you. The last concept for you after this, right? It's done and dusted. Right? So the last one for you will be International Monetary Fund. Now, if you remember earlier, we discussed a World Trade Organization. Correct? Earlier, we discussed World Trade Organization, WTO. What is the connection? Right? The connection is there was a Bretton Woods conference. Do you remember this? There was Bretton Woods conference. Right? There was a conference called as Bretton Woods back in 1994. Right? Back in 1994, there was a Bretton Woods conference. And during Bretton Woods conference, we basically decided to have three very important organizations. Right? We decided to have three very important organizations. One was International Trade Organization. There was no consensus. We were not able to set it up. Second one was right, the IMF, International Monetary Fund. We established it. India is a member country. There are around 190 members, 190. There are around 190 members of IMF. And we also have World Trade, or sorry, we also have World Bank, right? World Bank. Now, because we were able to establish only two organizations, that is World Bank as well as right, basically the IMF. Only two organizations were established. Both of them are called as Bretton Woods twins. Bretton Woods twins. These two are referred to as Bretton Woods twins. Now, what are the important points regarding IMF? IMF as a concept is very, very big, very large. Should you read all of it for UPSC exam? Absolutely no. Please do not waste your time. Don't read everything regarding IMF. Whatever is there in the current affairs, be very, very careful about it. Point number one, it is a part of the Bretton Woods twins. There are 190 members in the IMF. The headquarters of IMF is present in Washington, DC, that is USA, United States of America. What are the functions of IMF? Point number one, IMF will provide loans to member countries. We'll discuss that in some time, right? What are the different types of loans, etc. I will tell you. Please by heart the list. Beyond that, don't try to read everything regarding that, because there are more than 10 types of loans which are given by IMF. More than 10 types of IMF loans. You will not be able to remember all of it in detail. At least try to remember the name. Second, it will monitor the policies of the various member countries. Why? The policies of the governments will have a huge impact on their exchange rate. Policies of the government will have a huge impact on dollars coming in, dollars going out. Are they manipulating their exchange rate? Right? Are they fixing their exchange rate? Are they basically providing the market forces to determine exchange rate? So it will monitor the policies of member countries. It will also give recommendation to member countries regarding their policies. If there's a need to change a policy, they will give recommendations. And finally, IMF will also publish various other reports. Various reports are published by IMF. For example, World Economic Outlook, Global Financial Stability Report, Fiscal Monitor, Regional Economic Outlook, etc. etc. So, a lot of these reports are published. Now, before I go forward, please remember the names of the reports. Traditionally, UPSC has the habit of asking one question on report. Not compulsory, but that is the convention. Traditionally, UPSC has the habit of asking one question on a report. They will ask you, this report is published by whom? Or this authority publishes which of the following reports, etc. Right? So please be very careful. Please be very careful. Suddenly, for example, today, because there is a lot of discussion about poverty, UPSC can ask you, the global index on measuring poverty is published by whom? I'll repeat the statement. The global index to measure poverty is published by whom? Now, many of you will feel it is published by Niti Aayog. But please remember, Niti Aayog publishes only for India, not global index. Global index is published by United Nations, UNDP, United Nations Development Program. UNDP publishes a global index to measure poverty. Niti Aayog only publishes for India, domestic, right, multidimensional poverty index. Right, so let me go forward now. So reports, UPSC has the habit of asking a question on report, especially those which are there in the current affairs. Please do keep on reading these about these reports. Now, what is the structure of IMF? What is the structure of International Monetary Fund? The highest decision-making body, I repeat, the highest decision-making body is the Board of Governors. Every member country will have representation in the Board of Governors. It is the highest decision-making body, and whatever member country is there, there will be one governor, one person appointed as governor of IMF. Usually it is the finance minister, and the central banker head, the head of the central bank, will be appointed as the alternative governor to IMF. All of you okay with this? The highest decision-making body is Board of Governors. Sir, what kind of decision the Board of Governors will take? Whether should we allow a country to become member of IMF? Whether should we remove this country from the membership of IMF? Whether should we change the STRs that we have allocated. I'll come to STR, don't worry. Whether should we change the quota formula, whether should we change the articles of association associated with IMF, etc., etc. The most important decisions at organization level are taken by board of governors, and all the member countries, right? The finance minister will be appointed as the governor of a board of governor, and the central banker head, the head of the central banker, will be appointed as alternative governor to the board of governor. Now, the fact is, although this is the highest decision making authority, it cannot meet every day. Correct? It cannot meet every day. That's a fact. Do you think finance minister has so much of time to go to the board of governors meeting every day? No, that's not possible. So what we have done is, we also have set up one more authority called as executive board. We also set up one more authority called as executive board, which will have 24 members. This executive board will take care of day-to-day activities of IMF. It will take care of day-to-day activities of International Monetary Fund. Sir, what do you mean by day-to-day activities of International Monetary Fund? For example, what are the policies of India? Are these policies promoting free float exchange rate? Are these policies promoting restrictive exchange rate, managed exchange rate? Right? Are these countries following the right policies or not? What is happening to exchange rate around the world? What is the health of this economy? What is the health of that economy? So the day-to-day activities of IMF are conducted through executive board. It is conducted by the executive board, but the most important decision making is done by the board of governors. And the board of governors, because they cannot meet daily, they have set up one more authority by the name of executive board, and they have delegated some of the function, which means what will be the work of the executive board, that will be decided by the board of governors. What is the work of the executive board? The board of directors will decide it. They will basically say, you do this work, A, B, C, D. This is your work now. They'll start doing that work. That is basically the structure of IMF. Now, apart from this board of governors, there are two different committees, two different important committees. Please by heart them. One is a development committee. Second one is International Monetary and Finance Committee, IMFC. In case of IMFC, there are 24 members. There are 24 countries in IMFC. Apart from 24 countries, usually the global organizations, global multilateral organizations, they will be present in the discussions. They will participate as observers in the discussion. They will provide inputs during the discussion. So remember this, the global organizations such as World Bank, they will always be present in these kind of discussions, whether it is IMFC or development committee, doesn't matter. They will be present. They will be present in all these negotiations or discussions. They will provide important inputs. So one is IMFC, 24 countries are there. India is one of the countries. Do not remember all the 24, because many of you start asking me, sir, whether India is present or not. Yes, India is one of the member countries in IMFC as well as the development committee. The development committee has 25 members, including India. It will provide a lot of inputs. It has a representation from other global agencies as well. It will provide advice, inputs to international organizations. It will provide important advice, inputs to international organizations. So I've simplified the version, because do me a favor, go to Google and simply type IMF structure. Go to Google and type IMF structure, and after that go to images and go and see what is the structure of IMF, and tell me, don't you think the structure that the IMF itself has given is complicated or not? Yes or no? Do you think this structure is easier or that structure is easier? You have a look at it and do let me know what is your feedback. As far as I'm concerned, that structure is very complicated. You do not have to remember that complicated structure. That you don't require. That is very, very complicated. So many arrow marks going so many directions, etc. Simplify for UPSC GS paper 3, simplify it. you have two different grouping of countries. One is IMFC, second one is a development committee. India is present in both of them. International organizations are present in both of them. Now, these will provide advice to the board of governors. The board of governors will take most important decisions, and they will also delegate a day-to-day activity, day-to-day work to one more authority, that is executive board. This is basic simplified structure. Simplified structure, more than sufficient for GS paper. More than sufficient for GS paper. Done? Now, right, IMF, I said IMF will give loans to member countries. Correct? I said IMF will give loans to member countries. But now the question is, if IMF has to provide loans, let's say here is IMF, IMF will provide assistance to member countries, which means IMF should have money. Correct? If you say bank is giving loans to customers, does it not also mean bank in the first place should have money to give loans? So in the same way, IMF, what are the sources of the funds? For IMF, from where the money will come in the first place. So the sources of the funds from IMF, there are three types. Please remember, there are three types. One is called as quota. I'll discuss that. Second one is called as multilateral borrowing. Third one is called as bilateral borrowing. I'll repeat the statement. All these are very technical. Please try to simplify all of them. Right? The IMF wants to give loans to India, let's say. IMF very recently gave loans to Sri Lanka. IMF has given loans to Pakistan. So if IMF wants to provide loans, from where IMF will get the money in the first place? So the sources of funds for IMF are three sources. One is called as quotas. Second one is called as multilateral borrowing. Third one is called as bilateral borrowing. Now let me start with the first one. What is quota? Point number one, quota basically represents how much money should be contributed by all the member countries to IMF. Very simple. I'll repeat the statement again. Listen to me very carefully. Quota simply represents how much money should be provided by all the member countries to IMF. And how do I decide? How much India should contribute? How do I decide how much USA should contribute? How do I decide how much China should contribute? There is a formula for it. Right? There are four parameters which are considered. Right? Do not remember the formula. Very difficult, not important, very technical also. Right? There are four parameters. One is GDP. Simply by heart them. Second one is openness. Third one is economic variability. And the fourth one is forex reserves. I'll repeat it. Four parameters. Do not worry about what is variability, what is openness, etc. Do not worry about it. All these are not required. Simply by heart them. One is GDP. Second one is economic variability. Third one is openness. And the fourth one is international reserves. These four parameters or components are considered. A formula is used, and based on the outcome, we will decide India has to contribute this much money to IMF, China has to contribute this much money to IMF, USA has to contribute this money to IMF. Now, based on these parameters only, you please tell me, don't you think the countries which are larger automatically will end up paying huge amount of quota money to IMF? Very simple question to all of you. Based on this, four parameters. In fact, the highest importance is given to GDP. Highest weightage is given to GDP only. Based on this, is it okay if I say the countries which are bigger, countries which are larger in terms of GDP will contribute huge amount of money to IMF? Answer is yes. And what is the importance of this quota number? Please understand, based on how much you contribute to IMF, it will influence how much will be your voting power. I'll repeat the statement. Based on how much you contribute to IMF, that will influence how much voting power will be given to you. That is the precise reason. Please tell me. Now, based on your general knowledge, please tell me which country has the highest GDP number in India? Which country has the highest GDP number, not in India, sorry, in the world? In the world, right? All of you will agree it is basically USA. And if you check which country has the highest voting right, which country has the highest voting right in IMF, it will be USA. It will be USA. So quota means what? It is basically amount. It represents an amount which has to be contributed by all the member countries to IMF. That is their main source of funds. I'll repeat the statement. That is their main source of funds. And some of you are asking, sir, what is the formula to calculate quota? My dear, this is a formula, right? My advice to all of you, please look at the formula and please tell me, will UPSC ask you a formula like this? Have you ever seen UPSC to write down this, asking a student to write down this formula? Has UPSC asked you, right, calculate using this formula? Answer is no. Because some of you are asking, sir, what is the formula? How do we calculate quota? This is how quota is calculated. GDP into 0.5 plus openness into 0.3 plus economic variability into 0.15 plus forex reserves into 0.05 whole to the bracket CF. CF stands for compression factor. Again, you'll start asking, sir, tell me how it is calculated. What is this compression factor? Not at all needed. So given the formula, my advice, do not by heart it. Do not waste your time. Simply remember, GDP has the highest weightage. GDP has the highest weightage. GDP, because it is given the highest weightage, naturally the countries with high GDP numbers will contribute more to the IMF. And because of this, right, that contribution will also determine what is your voting right in the IMF. These countries such as USA have got a very, very high voting rights compared to India. India has just got about 2% compared to India. Some of these countries have got very high voting rights in IMF. Now, first source, all of you okay with this term? First very important source, by far the most important source for IMF is quotas. And if you see, out of the total money that IMF is able to collect or can collect out of this, the highest amount is always quota. Highest amount is always quota. And there is one more term here, STR. Many of you will start asking me, sir, what is this STR? Now, please tell me, is it okay if I say we use rupees in India to conduct transactions? Correct or not? We use rupees in India to conduct transactions. You want to purchase onion, you want to purchase oil, you want to purchase car. We pay in rupees, we receive in rupees. In the same way, IMF has a currency. IMF has an asset. IMF releases these assets or issues these assets to member countries. And whenever member countries will have transactions with IMF, I repeat, right, SDR stands for special drawing rights. SDR stands for special drawing rights. Right? What is a special drawing right? Special drawing right is nothing but it is a reserve asset. It is a fiat money which has been issued by IMF. It is a reserve asset which has been released or issued by IMF. We started introducing the SDR from 1969. And IMF will decide what is the value of one SDR. IMF will simply decide what is the value of 1 unit of SDR. Let's say hypothetically today IMF says 1 SDR is equal to $2. Hypothetically, let's say today IMF says 1 SDR unit is equal to $2. What is the meaning of it? If you have 1 SDR, it is equivalent to $2. If you sell this 1 SDR to another member country, you will get $2 from another country. If you have borrowed $2 from, let's say, any other country, you can simply give 1 SDR unit to other country. So all of you are able to understand the concept of SDR here. I'll discuss on what basis IMF will decide, etc. But let me know, so far so good. Right? Whenever you transact with IMF, India transacts with IMF, it will transact, that is, take money, give money in the form of SDR units only. Or it is always in SDR units. and SDR units can be converted, SDRs can be converted into other international currencies, such as dollar, such as euro, such as pound, international reserve currencies. You can convert the SDR into other currencies here. So IMF has three very important sources. The most important source is quota. Most important source is quota. Apart from quota, there are two different arrangements or agreements that IMF has entered into many other countries. One is called as a multilateral borrowing. Second one is called as bilateral borrowing. One is multilateral, second one is bilateral. I have given you information here, but just focus on important points. Just focus on important points. Do not by heart everything. What is this new arrangements to borrow and borrowing agreement? This is bilateral borrowing. This is bilateral borrowing agreement. Bilateral borrowing agreement. And the first one is multilateral. Multilateral borrowing arrangement. Okay. Now, what is this multilateral borrowing arrangement and bilateral borrowing agreement? Simple. Under multilateral, there are 40 members of IMF. 40 members of IMF who have come together, who say if IMF requires money, I repeat, right? These 40 members who have come together, they say if IMF requires money, we are willing to provide money. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement again. Same concept for BBA also, but the number varies. In multilateral as well as bilateral, either arrangement or agreement, what has happened? In the first case, 40 members have come together and they are telling IMF, if you want money, if you're falling short of, let's say, quota, if you want money, we are willing to provide $221 billion to you. We will give you $221 billion. Whereas in case of bilateral borrowing agreement, there are 42 members who have come together. All these 42 members put together, they are willing to provide $193 billion to IMF if IMF requires it. Because think of it, some of you will simply say, sir, why does IMF require so much amount of money? What if large number of countries are experiencing crisis, they want to borrow from IMF? Please think of it. I'll repeat it again. What if large number of countries under IMF, there are 190 members under IMF. If lot of these countries will start facing BOP crisis, will start facing economic crisis, etc., they would want a loan. In that case, if they go to IMF, is there a possibility that IMF may not have sufficient amount of money to give loans to all these member countries? Possibility is there or not there? Can you think of it? Is it possible or not? So understand the logic here. They have quota. They have already collected money in the form of quota. But what if they are running out of this quota money? What if they require more than quota requirements? In such cases, first they will opt for multilateral borrowing arrangement. Under this, they will borrow $521 billion from these 40 countries. And if that is also not sufficient, then IMF will activate bilateral borrowing agreement under which they will borrow $193 billion from these 42 countries. And obviously borrowing means again they will repay along with interest to all these member countries. And before you start asking me, is India a member of these groupings as such? Yes. India is a member of both the MBA as well as BBA. India is a member of both MBA as well as BBA. But the logic is very simple, right? First you have quota. IMF has quota. It will use quota first. If it is running out of quota, if it is not sufficient to cater to the requirement of member countries, they will activate MBA. And after that, they will activate BBA. So these are the different sources, three very important different sources of money for the International Monetary Fund. Can we go forward now? Anybody has got any kind of a doubt regarding what I'm discussing? Can we go forward? Please do let me know. Sir, either yes or no. Okay. Should we need to learn? My dear, yes. Please remember the sources. Please remember the sources. Sir, what is there in the box? I'll repeat the statement again. IMF has three very important sources of funding. IMF has to give loans. IMF requires money. The first very important source is quota. First very important source is quota. Second, after quota, IMF will rely on multilateral borrowing agreement. Under multilateral borrowing agreement, there are 40 members of IMF who, if IMF requires, are willing to provide $521 billion. And how will they provide it? All these 40 members will come together. They will hold consultations. They will hold talks. And if 85% of these members will agree, automatically the new arrangement to borrow or multilateral borrowing agreement will become activated, and these dollars will be given to IMF. Now, IMF has taken quotas. IMF has taken multilateral borrowing agreement also. Even after that, IMF requires money. In that case, there is one more arrangement between IMF and 42 members of IMF, bilateral borrowing arrangement. Under this, these 42 members of IMF have pledged, right? These have stated that they will be providing $193 billion to IMF under this arrangement. If 85% of these creditors agree, then these dollars will be made available to IMF for lending purposes. Right? So these are the three very important sources through which IMF will get money and will give loans in the market. Can we go forward? And when I say market, please understand. When I say market, you cannot take loan from IMF. I cannot take loans from IMF. Countries will take loans. I hope you understand this. Countries will take loans, right? And individuals are not given loans from IMF. Businesses are not given loans from IMF. Okay. Sorry, Sri Lanka use both multilateral and bilateral both. My dear, please understand. You are talking about source of funds for IMF. I hope you understand. You are talking about source of funds for IMF. I'm telling you from where IMF will get money. What are the different loans which are given by IMF? I will talk later. Have patience. Sir, so quota does not attract interest because it is not borrowing. My dear, even in quota also, certain interest is paid, which is called as STRI. STRI, right? Because IMF has taken money, certain interest is paid there also. Is it true that every president of IMF till now is from USA? Generally, yes, right? Please understand. Generally, what has been the convention is for for World Bank, right? For IMF, right? The presidents or the chiefs, etc., will either come from the European countries or from USA because they have the highest vote. They have the highest vote as a percentage. Okay, done. Okay, so this is certain important points. Let me take a break now. Okay, let me take a break. Couple of more points are there. What is STR? Many of you are asking questions about STR. I'll discuss now. Earlier, if you remember, under RBI, right? If you remember RBI forex reserves, STR was mentioned. We'll discuss it now. Reserve tranche position was discussed or mentioned. We'll discuss it now. And one more very important component I want to discuss regarding IMF is what are the different loan products IMF will provide? What are the different types of loans? Just the names should be sufficient for UPSC because more than 10 types of loans are there. You will not be able to remember all the details of all the 10 loans. Right? So I'll just give you certain names, right? Loan products which are issued by IMF. Right? So that's more than sufficient regarding IMF. Can we take a break now? Let me know. Anybody has got any other kind of a doubt? Can we take a break? Okay, let's take a break. Time is 8:05. We'll restart the discussion at 8:20. We will restart the discussion at 8:20. Please join back at 8:20. Okay, welcome back. Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Please do let me know. Am I audible? Done. Thanks a lot. So, a couple of more concepts to wind up the whole discussion. First one, IMF SDRs, special drawing rights. I've given you certain points regarding SDRs, but let's now understand what is the idea of a SDR in detail. Point number one, SDR stands for special drawing right. Special drawing right. SDR. Point number one. Point number two, SDRs are issued by IMF to member countries. I repeat, SDRs are issued by IMF to member countries. Now, from 1969, IMF started issuing this reserve asset, right? Basically, fiat money of IMF to member countries. Whenever any transaction happens between IMF and any member country, for example, loan is taken, loan has to be repaid. All of this is always done in SDRs, right? Because SDR, just like government of India has rupee as its currency, IMF has SDR as its right asset. It has issued it to all the member countries. Any member country wants to transact with IMF, it has to transact in the form of special drawing rights only. Now, SDR value is decided by IMF. IMF takes into consideration five very important currencies. Please remember the list. IMF takes into consideration five very important currencies, basket of currencies, and based on the value of these currencies, because value of dollar will keep on changing from day to day basis, value of pound will keep on changing, value of yuan, value of yen will keep on changing. So in the basket of currencies, to decide one unit of SDR value, there are five currencies: dollar, euro, yuan, yen, and pound. Right? Dollar, euro, pound, yuan, and yen. So these are the five currencies. The most important currency which will influence the most change in the value, the highest influence on the value of SDR will be done by US dollar, because the weightage that has been given is 41%. So argument is simple here. Five currencies are there. As the value of all the five currencies will keep on changing, value of one unit of SDR will also keep on changing. Whatever is the value of one unit of SDR today, based on that, you can give it to another country if you want dollars. You can give it in order to get yen, yuan, right, etc. That is the usage of SDRs. And please always remember this. SDRs can be traded, SDRs can be handled, can be held only by member countries. Companies cannot hold SDRs. Individuals cannot hold SDRs. They are not allowed to. SDRs are only available only for the countries. Right? Value of one SDR is based on the market. Based on the value of these five currencies. IMF allocates SDRs in proportion to quota. If you remember the quota term earlier, based on the contribution, the allocation of SDRs is also done by IMF to member countries. Then can we go forward now? Everybody is okay with the idea of SDR? Please do let me know. Participate. Everybody is okay with the idea of SDR. Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Please think of it and do let me know if you have a doubt. Next one is a reserve tranche. Next one is a reserve tranche or gold tranche. Until now, what we have seen is IMF collecting resources. Correct? IMF will collect resources in the form of quotas, in the form of MBA, in the form of BBA. Multilateral borrowing agreement, bilateral borrowing arrangement. So quota, MBA, and BBA. Right? IMF will collect resources. Now question is how IMF will give loans. How IMF will allow member countries to borrow from IMF. There are different types of products. There are different types of, right, let's say the lending that is done by IMF. One such lending is a reserve tranche or gold tranche. Reserve tranche or gold tranche. Under reserve tranche or gold tranche, every member country of IMF is allowed to borrow up to 25% of its quota. I will repeat the statement here. Under reserve tranche or gold tranche, every member country of IMF is allowed to borrow up to 25% of their quota from IMF without meeting any conditions, without coming under any of these charges. Understand the concept here, right? What is this condition? What is this charges? IMF will give loans. Some loans, they will charge a rate of interest. Correct? IMF will give loans. On some of them, they will charge rate of interest. And on some of them, they will not charge any, they will not impose any charges. One such availability of borrowing, one such facility where countries, not companies, countries can take money from IMF without having to come under any conditions, without having to come under any of these charges, is reserve tranche or gold tranche. And how much money can you take from IMF under reserve tranche or gold tranche? 25% of your quota. 25% of your quota means, let's say your quota is 100 crores. I'm taking numbers so that you understand. Okay. Imagine your quota is 100 crores. So 25% of your quota will be how much? 25 crores. All of you will agree with me? So up to 25 crore you can take from IMF. You don't have to come under any conditions of IMF. You do not have to pay any charges to IMF. This is called as a reserve tranche or gold tranche. Another way to define gold tranche is this. Please have a look at this. It is the difference between IMF holdings of a country and the designated IMF quota of the country. What is the meaning of this definition? Let me explain this. What is the actual quota? In this example, what is the actual quota? 100 crore rupee. Right? Your quota is 100 crore. You are supposed to contribute to IMF 100 crore. But under gold tranche or reserve tranche, if you borrow 25 crores without paying any money, without paying any charges, without any conditions, can I simply say it is as good as taking back your 25 crore rupees. So if you, out of 100 crore, if you take back 25 crore, how much will be your actual holdings with IMF now? It will come down from 100 crore to 75 crore. So now can I simply say 25 crore is nothing but the difference between the designated quota and the actual IMF holding of quota. Is it okay? The 25 crore, that is 25% of quota, is nothing but the difference between the designated quota of 100 crore and the actual holdings right now, that is 75 crore. So that is called as a reserve tranche, also referred as gold tranche. Now, please tell me, right, based on the discussion, please do let me know, all of you are able to understand why gold tranche or reserve tranche plus STR, why they are counted as a part of forex reserves in India. And not just India, every member country will do this. I'll repeat it again, right? If you remember the forex reserves, right, the RBI should hold forex reserves. RBI should maintain forex reserves. And how do we calculate forex reserves? The forex reserves are sum total of the foreign currency assets. Point number one, foreign currency assets. Okay, that is the first one, FCA. In addition to this, we also have gold reserves. RBI has huge amount of gold reserves. In addition to this, we will have a special drawing rights, and we will also have a reserve tranche. Please do let me know, all of you will understand why now forex reserves will include STR as well as a reserve tranche. Anybody has a doubt? If I want to say at this point of time, how many dollars can I get in India? How many dollars are there available with RBI? Can I simply say STRs we can convert into dollars? All of you will agree? STRs we can convert into dollars today. So those are the dollars which are available. What about a gold tranche? Right now I can go to IMF, borrow 25% of my quota. That is readily available to me. Those many dollars or SDRs are available. So that will also be counted as a part of the forex reserves. So all of you okay? Why these forex reserves will consist of gold, reserve tranche position, STRs as well as foreign currency assets. So get the sum total of all the four, you will have total forex reserves. And out of all of this, please remember this now, out of all of this, the foreign currency assets will be the maximum proportion. Out of all of this, the maximum is in the form of foreign currency assets itself. right? It's been a standard in India. Maximum will be in the form of foreign currency assets. Done. So the concept of STR as well as a reserve tranche position. So have a look at this. Every member country needs to contribute their share of quota to IMF. Part of this can be withdrawn by members up to 25%. When done, the member country doesn't have to pay any charges to IMF and doesn't have to come under any conditions also. Now, some of you are asking, sir, what is the condition here? What do you mean by conditions? If you're seeing, let's say Pakistan and Sri Lanka, right? Please participate and do let me know. We are almost at the end of IMF now. Done and dusted. Economics will be over for you very soon. Please participate and do let me know. Are you not seeing Sri Lanka as well as Pakistan implementing certain reforms in order to increase their tax and revenue collection? In order to impose a higher taxes and collect to more revenue from the consumers, etc. Why do you think these countries are doing it? For example, couple of months ago, the government of Pakistan increased the taxes on the petrol and diesel. You can check it. Couple of months ago, the government of Pakistan, in fact, many of the newspapers refer to this as a Pakistan bomb, petrol bomb, right? They call this as a petrol bomb. Petrol bomb, in essence, was the decision of government of Pakistan to impose a higher taxation on fuel products. Why do you think the governments are doing it? And that too in a situation where Pakistan already is experiencing higher inflation. Pakistan is experiencing higher unemployment rate. Then why? Many of you will be wondering, why is the government doing it? What is the logic behind it? The logic is IMF, whenever they will provide assistance, they will have the power to impose certain conditions on the member countries. Right? IMF will impose a certain conditions on the member countries. IMF says you want to take a loan, you will have to improve your tax revenues. You want to take a loan, you will have to ensure that the consumption inflation rate will be controlled. You want to, let's say, get assistance from me, you will have to control government expenditure by this much, you will have to reduce your deficit by this much. These are the conditions which are imposed by IMF. These are conditions which are imposed by IMF, and IMF will do that. Why? Because imagine IMF will give loan to a member country. The member country can use the amount of loan to provide subsidies. They can use it to provide social welfare. But that was not the objective of IMF giving loan to a member country. IMF says, you are facing BOP crisis, you are facing certain economic crisis, I will assist you. But you should not use this money for this. So ensure that certain conditions which have already imposed, you will implement those conditions so that I will have more confidence on this member country. So that the recovery can be promoted, I will give you assistance. So conditionality is a part and parcel of IMF lending. But please remember, under gold tranche or reserve tranche position, IMF doesn't impose any conditionalities. Now, last point regarding IMF, what are the other types of loans which are issued by IMF? There are more than 10 types of loans. I repeat, there are more than 10 types of loans. Should you by heart in detail regarding all the loan products of IMF? My advice to you is don't. These are very complicated. There is no fixed interest rate. There is no fixed duration also. Everything is flexible by IMF. Certain flexibility is provided by IMF. But what I would recommend is, remember the concept here. IMF will provide loans under two heads. One is called as concessional lending. Second one is non-concessional lending. What is the basic difference? In concessional lending, loans are given, but interest rate is not charged. Loans are given, interest rate is not charged. And don't you think automatically it means these kind of loans should be available for very poor countries around the world? Think of it. These kind of loans should be reserved to be made available only for least developed countries. Can a concessional loans that is at 0% rate of interest, should the concessional loans be issued to USA? Should a concessional loan be issued to Britain, to Germany, to China? No, IMF says no. These are developing and developed countries. I will not issue concessional loans to these kind of countries. I will issue them to very, very least developed countries. Right? Those countries which are very poor, I will give these kind of loans, concessional loans to such countries. So please understand three types of loan products too. Right? These least developed countries, right? These are concessional loans. And please understand next point as well. Next point as well. How much can you borrow is determined based on your quota. I'll repeat the statement. Under rapid credit facility, how much you're allowed to borrow, it is determined by your quota. Generally, certain percentage, 80%, 100%, 120%, etc., etc., based on your quota and whatever contribution you have done, a percentage of that you can take under these types of concessional loans. It is same, right? That is, the quota will determine how much you will get under concessional as well as non-concessional. But imagine a very poor country. Imagine a very poor country. It has contributed under quota. It has already used all of its right quota based borrowing facility under concessional. Even after that, let's say hypothetically, you have given 100 crore rupee quota. And under concessional lending, you are allowed to take only up to 100% of your quota, which means 100 crore quota you have contributed, 100 crore loans you have taken, or let's say 150% of quota, that will become 150 crore borrowing under concessional lending. But even after that, you want loans. Even after that, there is still ongoing crisis, you want to borrow. In such cases, IMF says, concessional, it is not possible now. Concessional, it is not possible because your limit was 150%. You have already used up 150% under concessional lending. Now you can take under non-concessional. Now you can borrow under non-concessional. Again, under non-concessional also, up to certain limit of quota, as a percentage of quota, the loans are given, but the rate of interest is charged. The rate of interest is charged under non-concessional. Right? So under concessional, only least developed countries are given loans. Under non-concessional, any member country, whether you're developed, not developed, doesn't matter. Any member country can take loan from IMF under non-concessional. Okay. So the instruments are these: rapid credit facility, standby credit facility, extended fund facility, rapid financing instrument, right? A standby arrangement, extended credit facilities, etc. These are the different types of loan products. Some of you will say, sir, what duration the loans are given? How much is the rate of interest? Rate of interest will keep on varying, but please have a look at the complexity. Why I'm saying, do not try to buy at everything in detail. The reason is simply this: the loans which are given for a certain number of years, but there is a facility, there is an option for IMF to extend the duration. There is always an option. The IMF can extend the duration. For example, extended fund facility, EFF, extended fund facility. It is available for emerging and advanced economies. That is basically non-concessional. Repayment period is up to 3 years. Whereas rapid financing instrument, the repayment can be done in 3.25 years to 5 years. So there is this particular flexibility where duration can be extended. So that is the reason from one loan product to another loan product, the duration will change. Rate of interest charge will change. You do not worry. But what is the point? In recent times, lot of these countries are taking loans from IMF. India has not taken any loan from IMF recently. I'll repeat the statement. India has not borrowed any money from IMF in recent times. The last time when we took a loan from IMF was back in 1991 crisis. During 1991 crisis, India borrowed from IMF and it has repaid. It has whatever borrowings was done, it has already repaid. Today, Government of India doesn't have any kind of loans from IMF. Whatever loans were there, we have repaid it to IMF. Done? Right. So lastly, certain important points regarding IMF. India is the founding member of IMF. India currently has a voting right of 2.63%. India has not taken any financial assistance from IMF since 1993. Whatever loans were taken have been repaid by 97, 99. After that, we have not taken any loans. We do not have any loans to be repaid to IMF. Done. So these are certain important points regarding International Monetary Fund, IMF, International Monetary Fund. All of you okay with what I've discussed? Anybody has got any kind of a doubt? Please do let me know. Certain questions are there. We'll solve the questions. Then we can basically wind the discussion. Okay. Sir, what is the action taken by IMF if country defaults on loan? Generally, other countries such as let's say China or other countries such as European countries will give guarantees. Right? Whenever the country has to take a loan, there are other countries which will provide guarantees to IMF. Okay. Okay. Let's solve the questions then. Let's solve questions. Right. So let's start solving it rather than starting this thing, that thing, etc. That is polling. I'll not start polling. Let's solve it directly. Recently, which one of the following currencies has been proposed to be added to the basket of IMF SDR? Now, please understand this question was asked, I believe, around 4 to 5 years ago. Right, 4 to 5 years ago, this question was asked because at that point of time there was a discussion whether should we include a new currency into the basket of IMF, and that currency that I'm talking, which was considered to be included, which has already been included, is a Chinese yuan, which is also called as renminbi. A Chinese yuan, which is also called as renminbi. Just like we have a rupee paisa in India, there is yuan and a renminbi in China. So it is a Chinese renminbi, which was considered and which is already included. It is part of basket of currencies to determine SDR value. It is already included. Indian rupee is not part of the basket. Remember this. Indian rupee is not part of the basket. Okay. Next, this was asked last year in prelims. This question was asked last year in the prelims. Rapid financing instrument and rapid credit facility are related to the provisions of lending by which of the following organizations or institutions? And the logic behind asking the question was very simple. Sri Lanka, right, or Pakistan for that matter, they are taking loans, right, from IMF. They're taking loans from IMF. That is the reason suddenly UPSC asked a question on lending tools which are available with IMF. Straightforward answer to this is IMF, International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund. Okay. Next, with reference to International Monetary and Financial Committee, IMFC. If you remember the picture earlier, on one side there was IMFC, 24 countries, and the other side was a development committee, 25 countries. India is a member of both of these committees. So IMFC consider the following statements. IMFC discusses matters of concern affecting the global economy and advises IMF on the direction of its work. Correct. It's a straightforward factual question. Yes, it will provide direction. The World Bank participates as observer in IMFC meeting. I've told you this. Right? Be it a part of development committee or IMFC, World Bank will participate as an observer, will give the important inputs to both of them. So both the statements are correct. Right option will be option C, both 1 and 2. Okay. Now, descriptive questions. Descriptive questions. The nature of economic growth in India in recent times is often described as jobless growth. And we have discussed the idea of a jobless growth last class. Do you agree with this view? Give arguments in favor of your answer. Right, sir? How do I write these kind of questions? Do not expect the answer to these kind of questions to be given in books. They will not give it. Current affairs. That's the reason current affairs is so important for you. So what is the model answer? Start with the definition of jobless growth. Jobless growth refers to a phenomenon or a situation in an economy where economy registers very high growth rate but very less employment growth rate. That is jobless growth. Now, why do we say that there's a jobless growth phenomenon in India? Right? The observations. Employment elasticity has been very low in India. Right? The investments have become more and more capital intensive. Right? The majority of the contribution is coming from services sector. Service sector is not as labor intensive as a manufacturing sector. Skilled labor availability in India is very low. The labor laws are very strict, and that is the precise reason why Companies are preferring more of mechanization rather than creating jobs for the employees, etc., etc. So these are some of the reasons why we say there is jobless growth phenomenon observed in India. But having said so, you cannot leave the answer there only. You'll have to give way forward. You'll have to give conclusion. Having said so, Government of India in recent times has implemented reforms such as Make in India, Skill India Initiative, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Startup India Initiative, etc., through which government is not only promoting generation of new jobs, it is also ensuring that the job seekers are skilled so that the supply will be matching the demand in the market. Right? So that is basically the concept. That is basically the concept, or that is basically the model answer that you need to write like this. Okay. Next one. Should we elaborate on these 4 points? My dear, if the space is available for you, because if this question is asked for 250 words, think of it. If the question is asked for 150, don't you think your answer will be different? If your question is for 250, answer will be different. If it is an essay, don't you think answer will be different? So I hope you understand from one angle to another angle, right? You cannot have only one answer for all the three types of questions. Discuss the jobless growth phenomenon. If it is an essay, the answer will be very elaborative. Then you will have to explain what is employment elasticity, the decline in the employment elasticity from 0.4 in 1990s to 0.2 in India, right? The labor laws, labor is a concurrent list subject. Central government also has made labor laws. The state government also has made labor laws. As a result of which, there are more than 100 labor laws in India. So I hope you understand. I hope you understand. Some of you are asking, sir, should I expand this? Sir, should I write these only in point? Should I write paragraph? My dear, from one question to another question, there is no universal answer to this question, right? That is your question. Should I write only these points? There is no universal answer. Why? If I say, yes, this is sufficient, right? I'll simply say, this is sufficient. What if you simply by heart it, write this as an answer for essay question on jobless growth? Don't you think you have made a blunder there? You have not made a small mistake. You have made a blunder, right? To the proportion of Himalayan blunder. You have made a huge blunder there. So I hope you understand when I say model answer can be given, but whether you will have to expand it, whether you'll have to write it in point, whether it should be in paragraph, it varies from one type of question to another type of question, right? So I hope you understand this. Okay, what are the salient features of inclusive growth? Has India been experiencing such a growth process? Analyze and suggest measures to promote inclusive growth. Introduction, definition of inclusive growth. World Bank definition is there, very widely accepted, very inclusive also. Write it. Inclusive growth refers to pace and pattern of growth. Both are related, both should be addressed together. That's it. Within 20 to 25 words, you have completed definition. Main body, what are the salient features of inclusive growth? Higher incomes in the agriculture sector, reduction in poverty numbers, higher industrial growth rate, reduction in pollution to the environment, regional disparities are coming down, etc., etc. These are salient features of inclusive growth. Next, has India achieved inclusive growth? You can simply say India is in the process of achieving inclusive growth because even today, the number of poor in India are very high. There is the issue of unemployment as well as underemployment. Right? There is an issue of benefits not reaching the right beneficiary in India, etc. And in the conclusion, you can say government in recent times has taken reforms such as a direct benefit transfer, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, Make in India, right? Promotion of electric vehicle production, etc., to promote inclusive growth in India. Done. So you have addressed all the aspects of the question. You have also given a conclusion to the answer. Right. So these are the various questions which have appeared in the last couple of years regarding concept of employment inclusive growth. right? So that's the end of the discussion for you people. Now, if you have any kind of questions, please do let me know. And before I wind up completely the discussion, if there are any questions you have regarding whatsoever in Indian economy, please do let me know. Economics is tough to me. Please tell about how I'll prepare current affairs. Okay, my dear. Regarding the strategy, many of the students will ask me, sir, what should I do for economic strategy? Right? This is the strategy that I would strongly advise you people to follow. Now, whether you will follow, not follow, entirely is up to you. Right? I can only tell you a strategy. I cannot come to your home and start making you read that. I can't do that. First one, whatever you have read in the classroom, use a static source such as a NCRT or Tamil Nadu book to understand the basics. Very simple. And I've discussed all of this with you. Right? Tamil Nadu board or NCRT. If you want to read both, basics are very good. Read it. Nothing wrong with that. Second point, make short notes. Or else what I would recommend to you is make mind maps. Make mind maps for every chapter. Whatever you've read in economics. Right? Third one is current affairs. This is very, very important. Third one is current affairs. Please do not make a mistake of reading current affairs. Because whatever you have read in the classroom, after 1 month, concept might have changed. Data might have changed, etc. So please make sure that you will update with current affairs. Fourth point, revise and revise. Very simple. Revise and revise. Right? Do not read only once and imagine that or think that you will remember it after 1 month. You'll remember it after 4 months. You'll remember it after 6 months. It's not possible. Now, many of you will say, sir, revision. How do I do the revision? My recommendation is you cannot read everything from first page to last page every time. Here, your short notes will be very important. Here, short notes or mind maps will be very, very important. And the last but not the least, although it is last but very, very important, solve as many questions as possible. PTS is going on, attend it. Marks are low, don't worry, attend it. MTS is going on, attend it. Everyday questions are given, write it, practice it. Right? MCQ weekly tests are given, solve it. Last 5 years question paper, look at it, solve it. So as many questions as possible, try to solve them. So as far as I'm concerned, these 5 points will help you in preparing well, revising well, and getting ready for both prelims as well as mains examination. Now, many of you are saying, sir, how do we prepare short notes? How do we prepare mind maps? To make it helpful for you, to basically tell you how do you prepare mind maps, I've given you mind maps for 2 chapters. One is for national income. Second one is for inflation. Now, please have a look at the mind map for national income. Please have a look at it. Whatever we have discussed in national income, I've put everything in only one slide. Some of you are saying, sir, it is not visible, etc. My dear, please magnify it. Zoom in later, you will get it. Right? So zoom in, you will get the idea. Okay. So PDF, PPT is available. Zoom in, you can have a look at it. So what I've done in this mind map is, I have created a mind map considering what is there in the current affairs on the left side and what is there in the static source on the right side. For example, in national income, what we have discussed? We have discussed GDP, the base year, the methodology of calculation, right? Correct? New methodology of calculation, the 3 methods to calculate GDP, what is the authority which will publish GDP, quarterly, half yearly, full year, etc., etc. After that, GNP we have discussed. Whatever points we have discussed in 1 or 2 lines, I have written in front of GNP. Same thing for NDP, NNP as well as NNP at factor cost. After that, per capita income, right? What is the important point, right? And based on your requirements, you feel this is important, write it down, right? So importance of national income, Right? What are the issues related to national income measurement, etc. So whatever we have discussed in national income, I've written it on the right side. Whatever is there from current affairs, I've written it on the left side. So now tell me, is it easier to revise this mind map once every week? Is it easier to revise with mind map once every 15 days, once every 20 days, or once every 10 days based on your requirement? So if you make mind maps for, let's say, 15 chapters or 18 chapters, it will hardly take, let's say, 5 hours, 6 hours to completely revise whole, right? The whole Indian economy that we have discussed. So that is the precise reason. That is the precise reason, right? I would recommend try to make short notes or mind maps so that your revision will become very easier. I've given the mind map for inflation as well as right, the GDP chapter or national income chapter. Please have a look at it. Okay. Source of current affairs. You want to use newspapers? Use it. You want to use a monthly magazine? Use it. You want to attend webinars? Right? Use it. Entirely up to you. We have multiple sources which are available at your disposal. You want a magazine? Magazine is available. Use it. You want a daily newspaper analysis? It is available. Use it. You want, right, let's say webinar? It is available. Use it. Entirely left to you. Entirely left to you. Okay, so it is your decision. Sir, I want to attend daily newspaper analysis and get all the current affairs. Use it. Right. Again, sir, which newspaper? This answer I've given it at least 100 times now. There is absolutely no one best newspaper for UPSC. Do not be under the impression that there is one newspaper. If you read it, 100% guarantee you will pass UPSC. There is no right golden newspaper for you. You want to read Hindu? Read it. But I've told you multiple times. One grievance I have generally with Hindu is they do not have sufficient coverage of economics articles. I've told you this multiple times. They do not have sufficient coverage of articles related to economics. Okay. Hindu plus Indian Express plus PIB? Yes. Right. You can use it. Sir, when I try to make short notes, I think all points are important, then short notes convert into long notes. Okay, in that case, do yourself a favor. Take out last 5 years question papers. Take out last 5 years question papers and see what kind of questions have been asked. Then you will realize, okay, this part I need not be focused so much, right, for prelims. This part I should be focused a lot based on mains. You'll automatically understand the importance. Difference between SDF and MSF. My dear, SDF, standing deposit facility, under that RBI will take money from banks. RBI will take money from banks, right? You have basically forgotten the basics also. Under MSF, banks will take money from RBI. Don't you think there itself there's a fundamental difference? Using STF, RBI will take out liquidity. Using MSF, RBI will infuse liquidity. And please look at the pictures at least. I've given the pictures. Very nice pictures I've given. RBI arrow mark to bank. You will see that under right one of the tools. And so just observe it very carefully. Okay. Can you explain income elasticity? Income elasticity means, right, let's say income elasticity of a demand. With the change in the income, if my income changes, automatically I'll start demanding more of certain goods. Is there any difficulty in this? If my income changes, I will demand more of certain good. I will demand lesser of another good. For example, if my salary will increase, I will purchase car. And when I purchase car, automatically my demand for public transportation will go down. So whenever with the change in the income, the demand will also change in the same direction. With the change in the income, if the demand changes in the same direction, we'll simply call this as a normal good. Income is going up, demand will also go up. Income goes down, demand also goes down. Normal goods. Whereas in the context of inferior goods, income is moving in one direction, demand will move in opposite direction. And for example, just now I told you, if my income goes up, my demand for public transportation will go down. So can you see in opposite movement, the opposite direction, the movement happening? These are called as inferior goods. Okay. How inflation will benefit borrowers? I'll repeat the statement. I'm sorry, I'll repeat the concept here again. Whenever there is inflation, let's say I will borrow 100 rupees today from you. Again, do not worry about interest. Most of you focus on interest. That's the reason you make mistake. Focus on the concept. The 100 rupee that I've taken today, I will return it after 1 year. When I took 100 rupee, the purchasing power of 100 rupee, purchasing power of money is higher. When I'm returning it to you, the purchasing of power of money is lower because of inflation. So inflation will benefit borrowers. Is Gift City similar to SEZ? Yes, Gift City is SEZ. It's a city. But within the city, we have identified certain region, we are calling it as special economic zone. And whatever laws are applicable in rest of India. For example, if you open a company in rest of India, you'll have to pay taxes. But if you open that in SEZ, tax exemptions are given to you. So Gift City is basically a SEZ concept itself. Or within the city, there is a SEZ which we have established. Logistics performance index released by World Bank. Indian ports turnaround time is better. I need to check what is the TAT as given by logistics performance index. I don't have the data at my fingertips right now. You check the data. You check the data. Right? It should be there. I don't know the data as of now. Okay. Is NEER and REER indices inversely proportional to trade competitiveness? No, NEER only talks about the exchange rate. How competitive is a currency? REER talks about trade competitiveness. How to understand budget and remember, my dear, you know what is fiscal deficit, you know what is the revenue deficit. Read those in the budget. Right? Is the fiscal deficit being controlled by cutting down revenue deficit or by cutting down capital expenditure? What is the government doing under subsidies? Is government giving more subsidies for farmers? Is government announcing more subsidies for electric vehicles? Right? If you ask me, how do you remember budget? What answer are you expecting? I don't know. You will have to analyze the budget according to what you have studied. Analyze the budget, then you'll understand. Okay, this is important. This is important. I need to remember this. What has the government of India done in gender budgeting, etc., etc. Okay, done. Any other question? Sir, why recently RBI has said banks and NBFCs should not invest in alternative investment funds? Because there is a concern of evergreening of loans. We have discussed this, by the way. We have discussed this in the webinar also. We have discussed this in the classroom also. Right? Evergreening. There is a concern that AIF route is being used for evergreening. And that is the reason RBI says if I've invested in an AIF, right, where funding has gone again into a company, that is basically like this. Understand this carefully. Just a second. Okay, here is a bank. The bank has invested in an AIF, alternative investment fund. What if this investment fund also has invested in a company? It has invested in a company and the company owes money, has taken loan which needs to be repaid to the bank. Are you able to understand this? Are you able to understand the sequence here? The bank has invested in an alternative investment fund. This alternative investment fund will invest in, let's say, shares of a company or bonds of a company. And this company has taken a loan which they are not able to repay. So don't you think this route can be used for evergreening of loans? Correct? All of you able to understand this? This route can be used for evergreening of loans. So RBI says evergreening is not allowed. Hence, if a bank has invested in AIF and this AIF has invested in a company which is a client of the bank, I'll repeat. Hence, bank has invested in AIF and this AIF has invested in a company which is a client, which has borrowed from the bank. Then these investments have to be sold. These investments have to be liquidated. That is what RBI says. Okay. Sir, in given good, how demand while price is high? Given goods, Understand this. Given goods are those goods which are consumed by very, very poor people. Let's say there is a person, these are very, very inferior goods. There's a person, the person has very limited amount of income, very, very low income. And the person uses this low income to purchase rice and dal. If the price of the rice goes up, please understand this very carefully now. If the price of the rice goes up, can I simply say he cannot substitute rice with anything else? Correct? The consumer cannot substitute the rice consumption with anything else. Why? This is already the most inferior good, the cheapest one available. Can he consume more of dal? No, that is also not possible. Why? Dal is very costly. So they will contain the dal consumption, they will increase the rice consumption. So the price of the rice is increasing, but even after that, the demand for rice will increase. That is exactly what will happen in given goods. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? Please do let me know. Any other question? Sir, can you please give us today's Hindu newspaper articles? No. I cannot give you because as far as I'm concerned, in Hindu newspaper today, there were no important articles. From economy, there were no important articles. Okay. Any other example? My dear, bread and meat. Bread and meat. That is another example of a given good. Price of the bread goes up. They cannot substitute because the bread is the cheapest one. So what they will do? They will reduce the consumption of meat. They will start consuming more of bread. And again, any number of examples is not important. Concept is important. Okay. Answer my question. I have confusion in syllabus. My dear, if you say I have confusion in syllabus, what I should understand by that question? I don't understand. And if you simply say I've got confusion in syllabus, good. I understood. It's a statement. Where is the question? Where is the question? What is the question? Okay. Arey Baba, if you have a question, please do let me know. Please check, etc. etc. How do I check? Hundreds of comments are there. Hundred of comments are there. Be reasonable. Be reasonable. This is my last class. Be reasonable in your doubt. Please check my first question. You want me to keep on scrolling up, right? Trying to search your one comment out of thousands of comments, hundreds of comments. Be reasonable. Can I use ARM as mind maps? You can use it, but again, entirely left to you. Entirely left to you. So in economy book, there are given some extra chapters. Should we read those also? My recommendation, do not read everything in economics. Whatever I've discussed, if you can get that in books, please read that, update with current affairs. If something comes in current affairs, please read that. Which topics for prelims and pre plus mains? My recommendation to you is read all the chapters for both prelims and mains. But even then, if you want a bifurcation, which I will strongly discourage, right? You can look at it and say, okay, banking, inflation, financial market, GDP, right? Agriculture. These are the 5 important areas generally for prelims, right? But for mains, focus on infrastructure, focus on agriculture, focus on inflation, focus on investment models, etc. So again, you can have a bifurcation, but my strong advice is that do not do that. Do not do that, because UPSC has never told you that these are the only chapters I'll focus and ask questions in prelims. UPSC never says that. Right? They can ask tomorrow, can they ask question on planning or Niti Aayog in prelims? You cannot say no. Tomorrow, can they ask a question on governing council in the preliminary examination? Of course, yes. Right? You cannot simply say, but sir, planning is more important for mains. Okay, but UPSC says I'll ask question. What will you do? So I hope you understand this. My strong advice to you is do not try to distinguish these chapters. Read it. You have sufficient time. Read it. Okay. Any other question? What is rapid financing instrument? It is one type of an instrument that is available for IMF. There are 6 I've given. right? You could read thousands of words on all the six. My advice, don't. Simply remember the names of instruments. This is one of the instrument which is used by IMF to provide loans, right? Loans to member countries. Okay, done. So that's it from my side for today. Take care, not only just today, but for complete batch, for morning batch now. So we started with the introduction to economics. I started with the definition of economics. If you remember, I started with the definition of economics, and we are winding up by studying IMF, inclusive growth, mind maps, how do you approach, etc., etc. So in these 24 sessions, right, we have covered multiple area of topics, huge area of topics that we have covered from GS paper 3, both from prelims as well as mains perspective, both from prelims as well as mains importance as well. So my recommendation to you is, please read it. Please read. Do not complicate. Do not complicate economics. It's technical. I know. I've been teaching economics. I've been a student for much longer than that. I know it's a technical subject. You do not make it technical. You keep it simple. You read as per the requirement of UPSC. And those who are asking, sir, what is the requirement? Again, my advice to you is, please look at the last 5 years question papers. Automatically, you will get to know what kind of questions are asked by UPSC. Calculations, a big no. Formulas, a big no. Technicalities, a big no for UPSC. Because I'll repeat this point. The students who are appearing for UPSC are from different backgrounds. They are not from economics background. They are from different background. Somebody is from an arts background, somebody is from science background, somebody is from economics background. Everybody cannot understand the technicalities of economics. You do not need also. So that is the reason, restrict your reading according to the requirements of the examination. Okay, so that's it from my side. Take care. All the best to all of you. Read well, prepare well. Good day.